of justice is to see that the guilty people are proven guilty and that the innocent are freed. Only we have a problem here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are taking a look at this case from a psychological perspective.
Fun. Everybody was having a good time.
Does Brian Albert strike you as the kind of guy who is always having fun? No. And here's a news flash for this judge. Mental health professionals have solutions.
They made an arrest. They got the guy killed Danny.
There's like a mix between sadness and anger because that's the moment for him when he really started to believe that his mother was involved, right? Closes his eyes because he's now remembering. There is a huge psychological component to what was going on here. And according to this group, Brian Albert Jr. gets like the most celebrated birthday hour of anybody ever. Like every 30 seconds, someone's like, happy birthday! Right? She's trying to lump Colin into that earlier group.
Somebody jumps in as a journalist, draws attention to it, in a light that is not good for the prosecution. I mean, and there are serious allegations of corruption in the DA's office and the state police.
Oh my God, it's not like his 21st birthday.
What happened outside was separate from anything that happened inside.
The most incriminating 911 call.
They're in front of his parents having text messages.
Definitely someone should give you a gun and a badge.
Horrible text messages read back as if he's the aggrieved party.
Hold on. Have each of you been called murderers?
Who wants to be the one to give Matt the bad news?
I wanted to prove or to demonstrate.
I don't know where the dog was. I didn't hear any barking. Her name is Sunny. She was named after Santino Corleone.
To the side, in the side yard.
Hey, hi everybody, there's my Johnny. Hello, that's my Johnny.
Sunny barks if you walk by my window and sneeze. You're not really going to deny this, are you?
It's so weird. It's like the Inside Out, upside down. Narnia.
Really
I would get at some point in a timely fashion and then turn it over.
Know if we had it enough, or we had it all, I should say.
Kill me.
Not having any observable or detectable electrical activity would be asystole.
Means death. 3 separate tab IDs. The thing he had to encourage her to do was not to testify.
You know, and Julie Albert responds to the text message from John, and she goes, "My biggest fear in life is ending up on Turtle Boy."
Stop it.
Oh, you never seen that? Oh, I gotta get you that. Let me.
No way.
Yeah,
That's wild.
Yeah,
no
I gotta
way.
dig that up.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
People are terrified of him. They're absolutely terrified of him. And how do we know that? We know that from the mega motion. Just another day for me, right? Which means it was just not an ordinary day for somebody else. Just when you thought you were out, they pull you back in.
Karen Reed plots. She fabricates a conspiracy.
I am just a person who likes to understand. That's going to increase the likelihood that we're going to take some action.
Here she is.
I'm so sick. I'm sick.
Gotcha. Okay, so your sister.
My sister Jillian, yes.
Oh, it's funny. But then he's got part of his shirt untucked. His back pocket is kind of hanging out.
Testified that.
Here.
So testified that.
Here.
So.
And showing solidarity, you can see them there.
It's about getting justice for John O'Keefe. There clearly is an issue of integrity.
How dare they?
Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yay! This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I am your host, Samantha Benigno. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a sixth year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor. And I am here tonight talking about, well, you guys already know, seeking justice for Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Hi, guys. Hi, everybody. So, quite the day, right? Like, I thought I was just going to come on and we were going to jump right in and get right back to work on Jen McCabe, which we're going to do. Make no mistake. But man, it's been a busy day. What the hell, right? Jesus Christ. So, I knew that, it might be because today was the deadline for the response to the mega motion by Mark Betterow. So I thought, all right, well, maybe we'll get something on that. And I did get, well, I guess we got a statement from Betterow, which I will read. But as far as I know, no response. Is anyone terribly surprised by that? Of course not, right? No. But what we did get instead is interesting. Very interesting. So we did get news, I guess. I don't really think it's news, but we can act like it's news. So I guess it was, picked up in a couple of different places, but Aiden posted it a few hours ago. So we'll take a look at his version of the story. So let's see if I can pull this up for you guys so you can see what it is, or we can read it together. I have to take something off. Okay, I will remove you from the studio so then I can add this. Okay, here we go. All right, I got to stop this. Okay, and then I got to add this. Sorry, you guys, I got to navigate StreamYard here. Okay, so here we go. This is what the story was that Aiden posted a few hours ago. The attorneys for the McAlberts and Brian Higgins say they are going to sue Turtle Boy and Karen Reed, okay, for reporting on what they did to John O'Keefe. And just to give you some highlights, because these are fun. Let's see. Here we go. The witnesses for Reed's high-profile murder case are denouncing her cover-up claims as a vile work of fiction. I'm sorry. This is the thing, right? Like, if you had this much evidence working against you, wouldn't you just go quietly into the night, right? Like, wouldn't you just I heard Brian and Nicole Albert bought a cabin in Maine, and that felt like a good idea. I was like, you know what? That's what you should do. Like, get a cabin in Maine. There's less people in Maine than there are in anywhere else in the country. It's this huge state land-wise, and there's no people there. It's a very quiet place. It's cold. I mean, you got to be dressed for Maine. But there's nobody there. So that's perfect. That's exactly what you should do. But nope, that's not what we get. Instead, we get statements about an intention, which is really interesting, to sue, an intention to sue. I think that's so interesting, right? An intent. What is that meant to do? Are we supposed to, are Karen Reed and Aiden Carney supposed to take that as a threat? I mean, I don't know if they were there or maybe they missed it, but Karen Reed was acquitted of murder. So we know that she didn't do anything, right? Which she is innocent in the eyes of the law. So I'm not sure I understand how this vile work of fiction, I'm not sure exactly how this works, right? Because in the criminal case, she was already acquitted, right? But I did get some interesting information just before right now. I was listening to The Lawyer You Know, and it was very interesting. So I want to play you a few minutes because he goes over the jury instructions for a civil case of defamation with jury instructions, right? So this is what the jury would hear if they are being charged with whether or not defamation has occurred. And this was really interesting for me to hear. I mean, this was so far from my understanding, even though I had no understanding, it was so far from my understanding. So I want to play this for you because I think you have to hear it. It is very interesting. We're only going to play it for a few minutes because you got to hear this. So let me pull this up for you. Again, fascinating. Okay. Here it is. All right, here we go.
More than the people on the other side of this lawsuit than Karen Reed and Aiden Carney. So just to get a better idea, in Massachusetts, let's take a quick look here at what the jury instruction looks for defamation.
Defamation.
All right.
Okay.
So defamation of a private person, which these people would be. Plaintiff has sued defendant, which would mean the McCabe's, Alberts, Higgins have sued defendant, could be Turtle Boy or Karen Reed, for making false statements about him, her, it. So it has to be about them. It can't just be I'm innocent, I didn't hit John O'Keefe, something else happened. Concerning, and then you have to actually explain what are these defamatory statements, which I'm really interested to see for Karen Reed.
Very interesting.
I'm sure they've got a bunch they can pick from Turtle Boy. As you heard during trial, we call this type of claim defamation. To prove a defamation claim, plaintiff must show, more likely than not, again, the 51%, the following things are true. So it's a lower bar than the
more likely than not, the following things are true.
I don't know if anything's lower than a grand jury. I think it's easier to win in a grand jury than it is in a civil case. And I don't think it's that close. That defendant made, meaning published, posted, emailed, a factual statement about plaintiff to someone else. Okay. So it's definitely going to be about the plaintiffs to someone else. I could see how, especially in Turtle Boy, right? You can just picture clips from some of his shows, I'm sure, being, exhibits in this case. Karen Reed's, I think, might be a little bit more difficult. But are they factual statements? That's going to be the first issue that we have to get to once we see what the statements are. The statement was false. And here's the other big
statement was false.
Was false. So it's a factual statement and it was false. So what does that do? Well, that opens up for Karen Reed and Turtle Boy to prove the truth of what they said.
Right.
So any discovery that goes to prove that this conspiracy is true is discoverable. Anything that could even reasonably lead to discoverable material, which in my opinion could be location data on all of these people for months and even years following John O'Keefe's death.
So you think that's what they want?
But maybe their kids and other family members that
think about
Turtle Boy and Karen Reed could convince a judge are arguably involved.
Now, here's the thing. At any time, remember, you guys, Brian Higgins and Brian Albert destroyed their phones, okay? Now, if you were trying at any point during this case, if these people were trying to say any claims against us are completely false, would you destroy your cell phone that could prove that you're innocent, or would you destroy it completely? Right? Like, that's the thing. These guys all along have been, it's vile, it's absurd, all of this. And it's like, well, then prove it. It would be so easy for these people to prove that what they're saying is true. Right? Like, let's just see the goods. Why would you destroy the one thing that you have that could absolutely, without a doubt, exonerate you from any claims? Why would you hide that? Right? That's the thing about this case. That's the thing about these people. The lying is unimaginable. It's just egregious. Okay, so let's just let him finish. I'm not going to play it for long. I just want him to finish here. Very interesting. Okay.
That's something they texted Colin Albert could reasonably lead to discoverable material. That's how the law works. That's how the court system works. That if you're going to do this, and now I have a burden to prove it's true, which we're going to look at the defenses in a second, I got to go get the information now to prove it's true. And that could already come out in some of the claims that Karen Reed's bringing, but we don't know what all those claims are yet either.
See, that's
so if
the
they were to
thing.
go
Like,
on the
these people
offensive
would
and
all
file
be
these defamation
deposed.
claims, could be very, very big. The defendant was at fault for making the statement. I will explain in a minute what at fault means. The statement caused plaintiff economic loss. Okay? So that is what they have to prove for a defamation claim.
Okay.
Defendant's fault. Okay. Third, plaintiff must prove the defendant was at fault. To do this, plaintiff must prove at least two things. Defendant was at fault if she, he, it knew that the statement was false.
All right. So this one is huge to me.
So they have to prove
that they
that
knew
whenever
the
Turtle Boy or
statement
Karen
was
Reed
false.
said this, they knew it was false. Which means, let's use Turtle Boy as an example, right? Because he's more bombastic and
this
hyperbolic.
was so big for me.
And likes to do it as a form of entertainment. I think he likes pissing people off and to be, that kind of radio show or whatever.
Okay,
podcast,
maybe.
whatever it is, YouTube channel. Did he have evidence and documentation and text messages and witness statements that made him truly believe what he was saying was true? So even if eventually it's demonstrably false and everybody knows it's false, and maybe even Turtle Boy eventually believes it's false, at the time he made the statements, did he know they were false?
So this is huge to me, right? Because I think we could all agree that, I mean, from what we've all seen of Aiden, nobody believes that these people are guilty more than he does. I mean, he's the whole reason that this is happening. And here's the problem with these people. Here's the problem that they have, right? It's not conjecture. It's not like stuff that just flew out of the sky. Like the 2:27 a.m. Google search, it wasn't something that someone just picked out of the thin air and said, oh, we just made it up. These are not invented. That's the problem, right? The problem is that the butt dials really happened. Yeah, and that's a great point. Oh my God, great point, Gina Parrish, 4096. We see how that worked out for Proctor, right? Why in the world would you open up that can of worms? So that's the thing. That's the thing. And that's why there's an intent here, right? The lawyers came out. So what happened here is the lawyers for the McCabes and the Alberts, Nicole, Brian, Matt, Jen, am I missing somebody? And Higgins. That's who it is. It's Nicole, Brian, Matt, Jen, and Brian Higgins came out. Their lawyers came out and made a statement that they have an intent to sue, or essentially, I guess in the Karen Reed case, to countersue because she's going to be suing them, and her civil attorneys have made that known. But in Aiden's case, they made it known that they would be suing them potentially, by the way, listen to the language, potentially separately. Come on. They're telling us they have an intent to eventually charge them, to try to say in a civil court that they defamed them? Come on. This is really, though. So now that you've heard that, let's let him finish. One more. I want to just give another 2 minutes to this. And you tell me what you think. Do you think it's possible to prove that Aiden Carney thinks that what he's saying is false? Because, come on. I don't even know where to start. The list is so long of statements, of actual facts, of things that have come out in these trials, right? Actual things that happened that they even admit happened. Of course, if you look at the facts and you actually look at them, what conclusion could you come to except that at the very least there is unimaginable, egregious lying going on the part of all of these people? And if you look at their text messages at a minimum, and that's only the ones we've seen. Now, mind you, if they're going to open up the gates and prove to us that they're innocent, that means what? We get all their phone records and we get to see all the text messages, all the location data. I mean, it's never happening, you guys. It's never happening. There is no world where this group of people is going to just like make themselves an open book and give us the goods, because they can't, right? That's the thing. They just cannot. They cannot. It's so frustrating. And, look, You could make the argument, do they have to defend themselves? I mean, if you were in their shoes, which obviously none of us would be in because none of us would be in this situation. I mean, really, I can't even imagine a world where I put myself in a position like this. But let's pretend for a second that we somehow find ourselves in a position like this. What would you do? Would you fight? Would you say, well, I have an intent to sue? I mean, here's the thing. And we talked about this last Wednesday night. Like when you listen to Brian Albert's testimony, what he does over and over again is they insist. It's like, that the grass is green and they're trying to tell you, no, the grass is pink and the grass is pink. And if I just keep saying the grass is pink enough, you'll eventually believe me, right? People have asked, do they believe it? No, they don't, but they're hoping that we will. Oh, that's right. And of course, that's right. The timing of this is obvious, right? Karen's court date is coming up on Friday. And you have all this stuff that's going on, right? With the mega motion in the background. There's a lot all of a sudden of what feels like momentum right now. And it's like kind of right under the surface. It feels like it's bubbling up. So let's let him finish here.
Or even without knowledge,
it's crazy,
was at fault if he or she was reckless or negligent about whether the statement was true or false. Meaning, if somebody called and said, aliens told me the McCabe's and Alberts did this, and Turtle was like, whoop, I have evidence. Now I believe it's them. That's not reasonable. That's reckless. That's negligent. So did he know they were false? Or basically it's a knew or should have known. Did he know they were false or should have known they were false when he said them?
Right. So what happens? What happens if the statements, and thanks to the lawyer, for his input and help on this, what happens if the statements that you're making actually, if you're a logical thinking person, if all of the evidence that you're highlighting logically points in the direction of it all being true, well, then what happens, right? Then do we leave the world of the civil case and do we just get to like hop over into the criminal court case situation? Is that what we get to do? If everything that you're saying that this person said about you that's not true turns out to be true? Oh my God, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I mean, their lives are ruined. We feel so bad for you guys. Come on. It's just, it's just insane. It's insane to me. It's insane to me. Really, really is. I mean, like, how dare you? But, I'm sure that these people are, to their attorneys, any friends or associates. I mean, I'm sure that they up and down swear to, on their mother's children, whatever, that they're innocent. I mean, that's the whole point, right? It's so vile. This story about a widespread cover-up, except the only problem is I've been doing this. So I started following this case right at the beginning of the first trial. So what was that? Like April or May of 2024. And then for the last 6 months, aggressively, every single day. Like 2 days ago, I'm on my way to Connecticut and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to pick like a random testimony that I haven't listened to really all the way through since the trial. And I'll just listen to it and see what happens. So I picked Lieutenant Gallagher from trial 2. And I'm not going to get to show you this tonight, but you'll see it soon in my next installment of the Who Killed John O'Keefe series. Lo and behold, more lies. Just more lies. And this isn't like deception statement analysis lying. This is like outright, we caught you lying, not just for Lieutenant Gallagher, but for some other folks who you might remember who will remain nameless until you see this video. But I listened to it, and again, it's like a 2-hour drive, and I like almost end up in a freaking. I was so distracted by it. A cop, which is really ironic, pulls up behind me with the lights on, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Because I wasn't really paying attention. Going through like some town in Connecticut, I don't know. I'm at a stoplight, so I like kind of go into the left lane to turn into a parking lot. And it turns out he's going after the person in front of me aggressively, like very aggressively. He was on my ass trying to get me out of the way. I was like, oh, well, thank God that wasn't me. But that's because I wasn't paying attention. I'm listening to Lieutenant Gallagher, making up stuff. And I'm like, I can't even believe this. Like, how did I not hear this? Number one, the first time, how did we miss this? How is it that a year and a half later, we're still coming up with evidence against this whole group? I mean, it's wild how much lying went on here. And it's just getting bigger. It's not getting smaller. It's not like we're uncovering less. It's like growing, right? It's like, whoa, wait a minute. At first, my very first instinct, and I've said this many times, was to believe that the Massachusetts State Police thought they had the right person in Karen Reed and that they were just going to do anything they could to make sure that the charges stuck, right? That they were going to get the bad guy and they were going to lie, cheat, beg, borrow, and steal to make sure to do that. But now that I've been digging through this evidence over the last 3 months, it's like, I don't think they even gave a shit about who really did this. It didn't even matter. It was just, we got to find somebody and make the charges stick on somebody. And she was like the easiest person to do it for. And that's what happened here, right? It's so frustrating. So, because tonight is all about the star of the show tonight, of course, is, you guessed it, Ms. Jennifer McCabe. We ended on Wednesday. We barely made a dent in her testimony. We were still on direct with Brennan. And so we're going to hopefully get through the very end of that and then move into cross-examination, because there is so much. There is so much in her cross-examination. And I also pulled up some Nicole Albert because, man, is she a bad liar. And it's funny because I've seen that testimony many times, but I don't know if I'm getting like a better ear or eye for this stuff, or if whatever it is, but all of a sudden it's really clear to me, like, how full of shit she is, right? I mean, just completely. It's like, they have no shame. It's just making stuff up. It's wild. It is wild. Absolutely wild. So we're going to get to that. And in our effort to do that, I want to bring up her indicators so that we can all play along. Listen, we're playing like Where's Waldo tonight here with Ms. McCabe. So for those of you that are not as familiar with Jen McCabe and her tells, right? Like, so, like in gambling or like in poker, people have tells, right? Everybody wears like the sunglasses and tries to like hide their facial expressions. So these are what we have extrapolated over the course of all of this time, effort, and energy, Ms. McCabe's indicators. When she says, I don't recall, we know that that is an indicator. Of course, whenever she uses never, incorrect, absolutely not, or like 100%, or anything that really acts as a credibility builder, where she's trying to say like, I'm a good person, or, there's nothing evil here, right? It's not nefarious, as she likes to do. And as I pointed out last time, she loves to wear, during the last trial, she had this giant cross and her shirt all opened up to the cross. That was very deliberate. That was what we would call a credibility builder. See, I'm just a, good Christian mom. I don't tell lies. I'm telling the truth. So that is any reference to being an honest person. You heard a lot of that actually in Brian Higgins' testimony. He did a lot of that. Like, no, I would never tell a lie. Okay, of course, we know that's an indicator. When she says, not that I recall, when we hear uncontracted denials, so cannot, did not, will not, instead of won't, can't, didn't. When she says to be honest, one that comes to mind right away is, to be honest, I hadn't brushed my teeth yet, when she's talking about the FBI coming and why it is that she told the feds that she was her sister and not her. That can also be a sign of embarrassment, generally speaking. But with her, as far as I can remember, I'm pretty sure, I would say I'm like 85% sure from everything I remember, that when she says it, we know it to be deceptive. When she references back in time to like previous statements that she's made, that's an indicator. The other thing that is really, it's subtle, but this is how I ended up catching Lieutenant Gallagher. This takes a real careful ear, and you have to be paying incredibly close attention to hear it. But when somebody, so most people actually, this is an indicator for them. You would never catch it unless you know to look for it. But most of us, when we're answering honestly, we give the answer first and then we explain after. So you'll say yes or no, and then you give an answer. When you give the answer and then, so when you give the explanation and then the answer, for many, many people, that's an indicator of deception. So if you answer with an explanation and not give a straight yes or no, that is an indicator, and it is also for Ms. McCabe. When someone, an explanatory plus a negative, you see that that's very common, and you see it with her as well. In other words, an explanatory statement, and then that is spoken with negative language. Like instead of saying, I did this, you're saying what you didn't do. If you're familiar with the Adelsons at all, you get a lot of that from them. The Adelsons are like, it's all they do is give negative explanations. Oh, my favorite, and they both do this. Nicole Albert does this. Oh my God, it's the worst. So when she's like, I saw Colin in the hallway, and I was like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? Sorry, that kills me every time I hear it. When you're recalling a conversation and when you hear them like telling you what the other person said, instead of giving you a general sense of what the conversation was, that is deceptive, right? And we talked about this a little bit last time. That's because the general law that sort of governs humanity, or all of us, is the law of the conservation of energy. So we try to say what we want to say as succinctly, as efficiently from an energetic perspective as possible. And when that's not happening, that's almost always indicative of somebody being deceptive, right? And that generally makes sense. Okay. Now, conversely, when someone's being honest, you'll hear a lot of relevant, vivid, and reliable details, right? So that's an indication of honesty. And it's funny because you don't hear it a lot with these guys, so we don't talk about it a lot, which is terrible, because then it just sort of feels like all we're doing is saying, oh, everybody's lying all the time, but that isn't the case. It's just the case with this group of people. And it's horrible. And I don't know, some of you may have seen, I did an analysis of an interview that Karen Reed gave with Ted Daniel last January. It was actually, I think it was like right on the anniversary, January 29th, of the incident. And it was the only interview that I know of where we don't have any editing. So we actually can see all the questions and we see her answering in real time. When there's a lot of editing, it's hard to gauge whether someone's being honest or dishonest, because we don't really know what was edited out. We don't know what the question was often, or we don't know if they asked a question and then snuck in an edited answer. And so it's very hard to be able to say definitively, oh, that person was being deceptive or being honest. But in this interview I did I analyzed of Karen Reed, it was in real time. It was like a 20-minute interview she gave while they were driving. So you can see it wasn't edited, and it was very, very interesting. There was essentially one outright deceptive moment. Oh, that's right. So repeating pronouns, I don't know why that's not on here. That should have been on here. Maybe I cut it off by accident, but repeating pronouns are one of the biggest indicators universally, really. And there was one big indicator for Karen Reed where she repeats I, and it was when she was saying that she thinks that she didn't realize right away that she thought that they had the wrong person, that she didn't think they were out to get her. So what she's actually lying about is the fact that right away she actually did think that they were out to get her, is what she. subconsciously was telling us, right? Which was really interesting. So, she's pretty direct in that interview. She just sort of talks, which is funny because another thing that we don't see a lot of with these folks is just like talking, free talk, just blah, 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 blah. Like we don't see a lot of that, right? We see a lot of careful selection of word choices because when you are trying not to give away the goods, really so much of deception is not telling the truth, right? Like you're trying to dance around something. And so you have to be really careful with what you say because you're trying to get around saying the thing you're not supposed to say. And you see that especially with Jen McCabe and what we're about to take a look at. So that is what we are looking for. Keep an eye out for all of that. Let me I don't know why this banner is up. That's annoying. Sorry. Okay. So let's get to it. Oh, one more thing I want to show you before I forget. I just wanted to mention this. So this is Bettero's statement because as I mentioned earlier or tonight was the deadline for the Commonwealth's response to the mega motion. So I just wanted to read what his Twitter statement or X statement was. It is now after business hours on November 17th, and it has been 2 months since we filed our motion. No response has been filed as far as we know. No response has been emailed to us. No motion seeking additional time has been filed or emailed. No courtesy email has been sent to us attempting to explain anything. We are simply without a response or even information explaining anything past the second deadline. That's all the information we have. So that was me reading the second part of the message. But since people have asked us about a filing on a case of much public interest, I will simply report the facts. We filed a motion to dismiss on September 17th. We filed a motion to dismiss on September 17th. The court assigned a deadline for the prosecution to respond by end of day, Monday, October 27th. Initially, the court suggested the 24th. Tim Bradle graciously suggested the Monday, quote, to give them the weekend. Late afternoon, Friday, October 24th, the Commonwealth sought an extension. By filing at that late time, they made it impossible for us to even respond. A few days later, the court extended the deadline to November 17th. We said nothing, no objection, no complaints. Okay. So then it is now after business hours on November 17th, and it has been 2 months since we filed our motion, no response. So that is where we are at. According to Mark Betterow, there has been no response to their mega motion. I don't know what happens. I mean, I don't think it's like Cinderella where like at midnight, she turns back into a pumpkin or whatever, I don't think that's going to happen, but, and probably knowing this county, nothing is going to happen, but it is interesting. And that is where we are. So welcome new member Vicky, and welcome to all the new members that I saw that were in the chat before we started. Welcome. And we're so excited to have you. Thanks you guys for being members. I'm only allowed to give out memberships randomly. It's really weird. YouTube doesn't allow us to like hand out memberships. It's very bizarre. We're only allowed to like an allotment every month. And I already gave out my whole allotment for the month. So I have to wait a few weeks to keep giving them out. So, but it's wonderful to have you. So thanks and welcome to all our new members. Okay. So let's get going. Let's do this. Let's get Ms. Jen McCabe up here. Okay. Here we go. All right. There she is. There she is. All right. Okay. You ready? We should be exactly where we left off. So let's see. Add to the stage. Here we go.
to thank us, one day John told us how he got a discount at Reebok and
Okay.
And so that morning when you're receiving calls, did something happen?
Karen showed up at my house.
How did you know Karen showed up?
Oh, this is interesting.
I could hear her screaming out front.
And about what time is this?
Approximately 5:20, 5:30. I can't be
Were
sure.
you worried for John at this point?
Not particularly, no.
Were you screaming?
No.
Now at this point, this moment when you hear her outside of your house yelling, early morning hours, did you know a person by the name of Kerry Roberts?
I knew of her. I'd met her once.
Were you friends with her at that time?
No.
Had you socialized with her at that time?
No.
Had you ever seen her before with John?
Once.
Tell me about that.
Years earlier, as I said earlier, I used to take Kaylee on Friday nights, and Kerry was the one who would take Patrick on Friday night. So we would each have the kids. And to thank us, one day John told us how he got a discount at Reebok and to get our kids' shoe sizes, and he was.
I also just want to say, sometimes, as annoying as it is to have to listen to Hank Brennan's voice, sometimes it's better to hear them on direct because, number one, their guard is down a little bit. They're not as defended. And number two, they say more because, right, they're being asked more open-ended questions where they're more apt on cross-examination to try to keep their answers short and to be more guarded and careful. Now, some of them are not, and some of them, it doesn't matter. But it is helpful because more words are going to come out often on direct. And that is useful if you're trying to detect deception, particularly like with Brian Albert and Brian Higgins. That's important. It's important to listen to their direct if you're trying to analyze the statements for people not being honest.
Going to buy us all sneakers, just as a way to say thank you for helping. So we all went to the store together, and then John took Kerry and myself to the hillside for lunch.
How many years before this moment was that?
Oh gosh. Well, I think that's when my daughter was in kindergarten or first grade, and at this point she was in 8th grade. So like 7 years.
Had you ever spent any other time with Kerry Roberts before this morning?
No.
Were you friends at that point?
No.
How would you consider your relationship with Miss Roberts on that morning when Miss Reed arrived to your home?
I had met her once, and that was the extent of it. I wouldn't say I knew her at all beyond that one time I went out with her.
I want you to take us back now to when you first hear the defendant in your driveway yelling. When you hear that, do you hear any words, or is it general yelling?
So I hear yelling. So I was downstairs making coffee. I go to my front door and I open it, and she's screaming, Jen, Jen. She's screaming that 3 times. And then she was saying, we have to go to Fairview. A lot of, could I have hit him? Did I hit him?
Okay.
Just, she was on repeat.
All right. So this is all fabricated. This is all rehearsed is the word I'm looking for, because we know for an absolute fact that Karen Reed did not know that she had been to Fairview. And it's Kerry Roberts who throws Jen under the bus inadvertently by telling us very matter-of-factly, and we saw this, we looked at this, I think this was one of the last things we looked at on Wednesday night, by telling us very, very matter-of-factly that she pulls up to Jen's house, and to get there, because she didn't know exactly where Jen lived, she's on the phone with Karen, right? So what happens is Karen has her on speaker in the car, in her car. So Kerry can hear everything that's going on in the Lexus between Karen and Jen. And Kerry tells us that in the car is when she hears Jen telling Karen Reed, No, we saw you in front of the house. We saw you at Fairview because Karen wanted to go to the waterfall. Karen wanted to look for John where she remembered them being last, right? And then there's this whole silliness about she said everything in threes. I don't know whether or not, what I could imagine happened there. It's like her when they're making their timeline, right? You can imagine that the two of them are going back and forth, and for whatever reason, oh my God, she said everything in threes, right? I mean, they're just making shit up. I mean, I don't believe that Carrie Roberts is doing that on purpose. I think Carrie Roberts is participating in this fun exercise with her new girlfriend. See, I think that's the problem. One thing that people have asked me, do you think that Carrie knows? Do you think Carrie Roberts has any indication that these people are not being honest? And the answer is no, and I'll tell you why. First, Carrie Roberts did experience a trauma. For Carrie Roberts, showing up, first, remember, Carrie really thought Karen was nuts up until the moment where Carrie exits that vehicle and walks over to John's body and sees him with her own eyes. She looks at Jen and says, she's out of her freaking mind, right? So from Carrie's perspective, she thinks Karen's nuts and is like losing it. And John's fine somewhere on somebody's couch until she sees that he's not with her own eyes, right? And even to this day, Carrie Roberts thinks that whatever happened was an accident. She doesn't think that Karen Reed did this on purpose. Well, of course she doesn't, because she saw how flipped out Karen was, right? So from Carrie's perspective, Karen did this by accident, right? That's Carrie's view of things. But she loved John. I mean, Carrie Roberts knew him since middle school. Now imagine that you have a friend from middle school, you've stayed with them or reconnected with them as an adult, and for the last decade, they've become such a big part of your life. They're friends with your husband or partner, right? I mean, John was a close friend of hers, so close that that's why Karen calls Carrie, because she figures if John's with another woman, Carrie will know about it. So for Carrie, this is traumatic. It really was traumatic. For Jen, it's a whole, whatever happened that was traumatic for Jen happened 10 hours earlier, right? So for Jen, it's traumatic because she's, oh my God, they're making so much noise, right? Oh my God, this is a scene. Oh my God, this is going to be like impossible for them to deny that they heard this, right? I mean, that's what Jen's thinking about while Karen and Carrie are discovering John for the first time. So, and we know, I mean, Jen McCabe's 911 call, it just gives it away. It gives the whole thing away. It is, to me, that 911 call, there's no more incriminating. I mean, it is so incriminating, right? Because you guys already know how many times she insists that John is dead, to the point where she's like ready to wave off CPR. And that's just not possible. It's not possible for anybody who finds a loved one, even if you like them, they don't have to be a loved one. It could be like just somebody you hung out with last night at the bar, to find them dead on your sister's lawn or passed out on your sister's lawn after you were drinking with them the night before. There's no part of you, there's no thought. The thought in your mind there's no thought, okay, in your mind that person is dead. It does not come into your brain. Everything inside of you is built to avoid that thought. So you're going to do everything in your power to not think that one thought. But not Jennifer McCabe, who at least four times tries to convince the dispatch officers that John is dead and is truly completely comfortable with saying, yeah, we don't need CPR. It's fine. He's already gone. So that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about what she knew and what she was thinking about. But for Carrie, my point is, for Carrie, it really was traumatic. And so it's a trauma bond. For Carrie, she trauma bonded to Jen over the loss of her friend, a dear friend who she loved deeply, right? That's a trauma bond, and trauma bonds are no joke. If you have ever had a trauma bond, you know these things are very, very, very real. They're not easy to break. And so because this has become your new BFF, the last thought that you want to ever have in your head is that that person has deceived you in some way. You can't allow that thought, right? It's like somebody who has an addiction. The one thought that they cannot allow in their mind is maybe you shouldn't do this anymore, right? It's like, no, if you're in an active addiction, that's the thing you're always trying to save. Like you're trying to protect your ability to keep doing that one thing. Well, Carrie is trauma bonded to Jen, and the last thing she wants to be thinking about is, oh, geez, maybe this woman who I am bonded to and who's been my very best friend every day for the last however long now, 3 years, is somehow involved in this. I mean, could you imagine how freaking horrifying that would be? Seriously, though. So I think that's like worse or like re-injuring on the level of the loss to begin with. On many levels, that would be devastating for Carrie. So I don't think she allows herself to even consider that possibility, not even for a second. No matter what anybody says, and no matter even what Jen says, and no matter how different Jen McCabe's testimony is from Carrie's, right? And guaranteed, by the way, that Jen is probably saying things to Carrie like, oh, I'm not going to watch the trial. We shouldn't even watch. Jen's probably trying to manipulate Carrie to make sure she doesn't watch any of this, right? Oh, it's not good for us. It's not healthy. We shouldn't watch. Make sure she never goes back to it. Oh my God.
What did you do?
My husband came running down the hall and was like, tell her to shut up. She's going to wake up the neighbors.
Right.
And then I said, I'm just going to go with her. I'm going to go look for John. And then he yelled down saying something like, you can't be driving around in this weather, with a broken taillight.
When you saw the defendant at your front door, had the weather changed overnight?
Yes.
Was it different?
Yes. Now the snow had intensified. It was almost like it was dark outside, but it was like whiteout conditions.
How dark?
Okay.
Dark. I mean, it was dark. It was like 5:30 in the morning.
So something else that we talked about a little bit last time also, remember that she has her agenda items, the things that she's trying to accomplish. It's, I guess a small version of that is like she says everything 3 times. It's kind of a small agenda item for Jen McCabe, but there are much more important agenda items that she tries to get in to make Karen look more guilty, but kind of doing it in a subtle way so it doesn't seem so obvious to us that that's what she's doing. And I'll point them out as we go along, but I think that's what she's kind of getting to that now. And remember, right, she has to defend the fact they want to make Karen look guilty. That the conditions were really bad. It was whiteout conditions that morning. So the fact that Karen saw John on the lawn means that she's guilty. She knew he was already there. So it's important for Jen right now to try to tell us that you couldn't see your hand in front of you because how did Karen Reed know John was on the lawn and we couldn't see our hands in front of us, right? So that's part of, I think, her motives here.
What was the visibility like?
Not good.
After you meet the defendant at your door, do you
Not
let her
good.
in or did she stay outside?
I'm not sure if I just grabbed my coffee and ran out or whether she came in. So we went down my walkway. She was just kind of running all around. The driver's door was open. So I told her I was going to drive because I thought she was too hysterical to drive. In the meantime, all of a sudden there was a car at the end of my street and there was a plow behind it.
The car that came to the end of your street, do you know where it went?
I meant the end of my driveway. I'm sorry.
When you say at the end of your driveway, did it pull into your driveway?
No, it just kind of stopped right at the base of my driveway.
Okay. How far behind your car was that car?
Not far, not too far.
Okay. Did you know who was in that car?
No.
Did you learn who was in that car?
Yes.
How did you learn who was in the car?
Because I said, who is that? And
Did you ask the defendant or did you walk
I
up?
asked the defendant, and she told me it was Carrie Roberts.
Did you meet Carrie Roberts face to face in your driveway that morning?
Yes, I wouldn't say we met. It was more of a the plow was coming, so she was having to like move down the street, and then either Karen called her or she called Karen, but they were on the phone, Karen's phone over the car, so they started talking.
Did you get into the defendant's car?
Yes, we did. I got in the car with Miss Reed.
When you got in the car, you were in the driver's seat. Was Miss Reed in the passenger front?
Yes.
You said there was an open call. Is this something you could hear on a speaker?
Yes.
At that point, had you had a chance to go and look at the taillight of that car?
No.
Did you have any interest in the taillight at that point?
No.
There was an open call between who?
Karen and Carrie Roberts.
Can you describe what you heard in that call?
Karen was saying that she wanted to go to Fairview.
I love this question,
and
so
Carrie
I want to
Roberts was
address
instructing her that no, we weren't going to be going.
So this question, like, what are the chances, or, oh my God, like, you know, the Occam's razor, like these types of questions are really interesting. And I think it's the exact reason why all the big media outfits kind of poo-pooed the story, because it was just, well, this can't possibly be. This girl was drunk and mad at her boyfriend. So yeah, she probably ran him over. But that's because if you don't have all of the information, then yeah, on the surface, that's what it looks like. But when you take each and every item in this case and you look at it, you don't just make like conjecture, observations, or big sweeping generalizations, and you look at each piece of evidence in the case, you start to realize, like, oh my God, these people are not telling the truth. So then once you are definitive about that, then the question is, well, why would this person lie? And why would that person lie? And why would this person lie? Right? So it's true if you just stay super high level and you just make like very sweeping generalizations. But this is a situation, I don't know, you want to say it's 1 in a million case. I don't care what you call it. But when you actually zoom all the way in and you really actually look at each of those things, and you start going, wait a minute, that's not true. I mean, they just told us that's not true. And that's not an opinion. That's what they actually stated in a courtroom. That's what they testified to. Right? You start going, well, that doesn't make any sense. And that's the reason why we're still talking about this case, right? Because it doesn't make sense. Because it defies logic. Because yeah, what are the chances? Well, maybe this is that 1 in a million case, because when you actually look at the details, what they're saying just does not add up. Like there is egregious lying going on, period. So then the question is, like I said last time, is Brian Albert hiding a crystal meth lab in the garage? I mean, that's an explanation, possible. Sure, I guess, maybe that's what it is. But there's something that they're hiding and lying about. So what is that thing? Because unless someone finds out, unless we learn through legal proceedings or whatever, the feds, I don't know, that there was a meth lab or drug operation somewhere that everyone's trying to hide, something else is afoot, right? That's the problem with this case. These very big sweeping generalizations, they just don't work here, because when you look at each piece of evidence, something doesn't add up, right? They are actually lying, and they're lying right out in the open. It is not hard to see. It's not difficult, right? You just have to look and actually look. It's right in front of all of us. I mean, it really is.
To Fairview, and she kept saying, we got to go to your sister's house. And Carrie Roberts said, no, we're not going to be driving around in this weather in 2 cars. Let's go back to John's. Let's go to Meadows. Let's go see if he's there. That was kind of the conversation. And then Karen was doing a lot of screaming, and Carrie was kind of yelling back at her to shut up.
Who was taking charge of the situation that morning?
Carrie Roberts.
Were you in charge of it?
No.
Did you weigh in or make any decisions on where you were going to go next, or were you just a listener?
I just listened.
Oh my
Carrie
God,
said
listen to
that
this.
Carrie's kind of a take charge person. She said, we're going to Meadows. So I said, okay, I drove to Meadows.
So this is like, are you listening to this bullshit? I'm sorry, but do you hear, like, this is what I mean by it's so hard to take. So here we have Jen McCabe going out of her way. She's got Hank Brennan asking her questions about whether she was a leader or a follower on This Morning. Now, why would this be an important question? Like, who cares about whether Jen is taking orders from Carrie or not? But it's really important to Jen that we all know, quote unquote, that she wasn't in charge, that it was all Carrie's doing, because Carrie's a, quote, take charge person, right? So she needs us to hear that she wasn't the one directing everybody. Yet, when we actually do hear from Carrie, she tells us that Jen is the one who directed Karen Reed to go to 34 Fairview. Unmistakably. It's very clear. And it's funny because Carrie could have not told us that. She could have just skipped over that. But both trials, she makes it a point to tell us that. Now, I don't know why. It certainly doesn't help Jen, but maybe she doesn't know that. I don't know. Maybe she doesn't know how bad it looks for Jen. That's possible. I don't know. But I think it's interesting here that we are being told that Hank Brennan is making it a point to tell us that Jen McCabe is just a passenger. She's just a follower. She's not in charge. It's all Carrie.
Now, at this point, you didn't know Carrie Roberts?
Unbelievable.
That meeting.
Yes, correct.
And you agreed to follow her?
Yes.
So tell us what happens. Take us through the drive.
She might have followed me. I'm not sure, but we drove back to Meadows, pulled into the driveway.
That was funny.
So you knew where Meadows was? You had been there many times for the kids?
Yes.
You think Miss Roberts may have followed you?
Yes.
What was the weather conditions as you were driving?
They were awful. It was, I was driving very slow, cautiously. It was dark. It was hard to see. It was, it was that type where the snow is like coming at your window.
Right.
How long of it?
Really hard to see.
From your home to John's home?
Approximately 5-6 minutes.
Was there any other phone calls while you were in the car with Miss Roberts, or did the phone calls end?
I believe that was it.
Can you describe the defendant's demeanor on the trip from your house to John's house?
She was just screaming, yelling things. It was almost like everything she said 3 times. And she just went from one thing to the next. She was quite hysterical.
Do you remember what she was yelling about?
About going to Fairview, asking, could she have hit him? Did I hit him?
How many times did she raise the question,
Just
did I
amazing.
hit him? Could have I hit him?
A good amount.
Did you ever speak to her about that?
No.
At some point, did you finally get to John's home?
Yes,
When you got to John's home, who pulled in the driveway first?
I did.
Where did you pull in respect to the driveway?
I just pulled straight in next to the garage.
Did you see where Miss Roberts went?
I believe she pulled in behind me.
After you pulled into Meadows, John's home, and you stopped, what happened next?
We go into John's house.
When you went to John's house, did you all go in the same way?
Yes, we went through the garage.
And before going into John's home, did you do anything?
Before entering into the house?
Yes.
I took off my shoes.
You took off your shoes?
Yes.
Why did you do that?
Because you always had to take your shoes off at John's. He didn't want you to track. He would have yelled at me for tracking snow in his house.
Did you see if Carrie took her shoes off or not?
I believe she did.
Did you see whether the defendant took her shoes off or not?
She just walked right in.
How would you remember that?
Because I thought it was strange.
So this is, I mean, to me, this is just, So Karen Reed is guilty, or they want to make her look bad. Jen is trying to throw Karen Reed under the bus here because she didn't take her shoes off when she walked into Meadows to look for John. Now, to me, the big oversight here, okay, is that Karen Reed is hysterical. In Karen Reed's mind, John is missing and something has happened to him, okay? She's hysterical, as Jen McCabe just told us. So would it make sense to you if she took her shoes off and then just walked in to John's house like nothing happened? Or would you, if you're Karen Reed, who only went to Meadows because Carrie insisted? Karen didn't think he was there. She had just been there, right? But according to Carrie, she says, did you look all over the house for him? And Karen says, no. So she says, well, let's go back to Meadows and make sure he didn't like pass out in a different room or whatever. So she says, okay. So she goes back there. In my mind, it is so much more incriminating. It's even worse if Karen was to take her shoes off, because then that's not hysterical. That's rational. That's, oh, maybe John's here. I'll just take my shoes off. And, like, no, she's a mess. She's hysterical. She's not taking her shoes off. She's running through the house to find him because in Karen's mind, something has had, Karen felt that because his daughter, his niece, was going to be home alone, because Karen had told him she was going to sleep at her house. Now, I know none of us believed that she was, right? I mean, I don't think John thought she was. When we look at their text exchanges, it seemed clear that John intended to have her stay for the entire weekend because of the storm, right? So he sort of felt like she wasn't going anywhere. But in Karen's mind, she had told him she was going to go back to her house. So in Karen's mind, she's thinking there's no way that he would not come back to be with Kaylee. So, like, this whole thing that Jen McCabe is trying to make Karen Reed look bad because she didn't take her shoes off. I mean, this is, to me, it's just evil. It's like an evil thing to try to throw in somebody's face who's hysterical, freaking out that they don't know where their partner is, where their boyfriend is, right? It's just another one of those things.
What was your purpose when you went into the house? What was the number one thing that you were worried about?
We were looking for John.
Anything else on your mind when you went into his house?
Also, I knew Kaylee was there.
Now, at this point, did you have a close relationship with Kaylee?
Yes.
Do you still?
Yes.
What did you do when you went in the house? Where did you go?
Not going to stop it there, even though I
the
could.
kitchen, and then I kind of peeked into the TV room. I walked through the dining room, and then before I went up the stairs, I kind of peeked into a living room. I went up to the top of the stairs. I peeked into John's room, and then I went into Kaylee's room.
Did you ever see John?
No.
Why did you go to Kaylee's room?
Because I wanted to go check on Kaylee.
Did you have a chance to speak to her?
I did, yes.
What was her demeanor at that point?
She was very, she was in the bed. She was holding on to her phone. She was terrified.
I'm sure Jen was comforting to her.
Did you provide her any comfort?
Yes.
No.
I told her that I was going to go out. I told Kaylee that I was going to go out with them and I was going to find John. And I promised her that everything would be okay.
What a friend you are, Jen.
At some point, you left Kaylee?
Yes.
Where did you go?
Unbelievable.
I went back downstairs and then we went out to look for John.
Before you left John's house that morning, did the defendant show you anything?
Yes. When we were out in the driveway, I had thought it was when we went in, but I think it might have been when we came out, but regardless, at one point when we were in the driveway at Meadows, Karen showed myself and Kerry Roberts the cracked taillight.
Did you or Miss Roberts get close to the taillight at that point?
Yes, we walked over.
So, and of course, there's no video evidence of this, right? Geez, where did that go? There's ring videos of everything else, but not of that, of Karen showing them the taillight, and of course not of when Karen comes back to the house at 12:36 or whatever time it was. Although we know that video of that existed because Trooper DeChico took sticky notes like this, and somehow we got those notes. And so the defense had those notes and found the notes about the 12:36 time, but the video disappeared. Surprise. And right, remember, Michael Proctor's the only person that had access to that, to those videos, according to the state, according to Yuri Buchanan. I just wanted to read this because I think this is hilarious. Pork Chop Express 355 cents 4.99 and says, "Love the videos and breakdowns you provide. Keep up the great work. Also wanted to say hi to the McAlberts, who I know are watching you deconstruct them." I got a kick out of that. That's hilarious. That's so funny. I mean, if I were them, I wouldn't even open YouTube, but I agree with you. I think these people watch it all. I do. I think they do.
Over, and the taillight was missing pieces.
Did Ms. Roberts have any comment about it?
Yes, Miss Rob.
So she had a comment.
What was Ms. Roberts' demeanor at that point?
She was frustrated with Karen. Had said that had said that Karen basically was telling her to shut up. You were so drunk, you could have hit anything last night. And then Kerry, I remember just thinking, all right, let's go. And I remember Kerry thinking, oh, someone's going to get.
So this is right now what I was talking about before. This is all BS, right?
Okay.
This is
I
BS.
know what you heard and what you saw.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Just like
At
the
some
smile.
point when you were looking at the taillight with missing pieces with the defendant and Miss Roberts, did you see Miss Roberts point anything out?
Yes.
Just FYI, I didn't have Carrie up to play right now. Maybe I should bring it up. Carrie Roberts tells us that the taillight was cracked and missing a piece. Okay. That's Carrie's description. The taillight was cracked and a piece was missing. And she remembers because it was pushed in, the taillight was pushed in, and there was a little piece sticking out. Remember? And she was worried that people were going to get their coat stuck on the little piece that was sticking out, right? So it was cracked and missing a piece, according to Carrie. But according to Jen, it's missing pieces. Of course it is. Duh.
She pointed a piece that was sticking out and was concerned that someone was going to catch their coat or something on it.
And during that time when the defendant is showing you the taillight with missing pieces, was she saying anything about it?
No, I don't. Not that I can recall right now.
You mentioned at some point she was saying, could I have hit him after you left John's house? Was that in the car or before you got in the car?
I know for a fact it was definitely in the car. Was one of the times, yes.
So I know for a fact
behind the defendant.
I know for a fact is a credibility builder, and it is absolutely one of those things that we look for. I know for a fact. Well, aren't you on a witness stand testifying in a courtroom? Shouldn't everything you say be a fact? I mean, like, isn't that what you're there to do, is to testify to the facts? So why would you say, I know for a fact, right? Do you see what I mean? This is like the story of Jen McCabe's testimony. It's everything she says this way in one form or another. I mean, it's brutal. And like I said, so if she's not lying or deceiving outright, she's got an agenda. And you see exactly what I mean in this testimony right here on This Morning. There's all these agenda items that she's got to hit to make this story sound like it's nefarious for Karen, right? That Karen has this agenda. She walked into the house and she didn't take her shoes off. That's really weird because why didn't you take your shoes off? She was, before we even left my driveway, she's saying, we got to go to Fairview. We got to go to Fairview, right? And it was a whiteout condition because you couldn't even see in front of your face because, yeah, how did Karen see John on the lawn at 34 Fairview, right? I mean, Carrie is the leader. I'm not making any decisions. Carrie's the one in charge of all of this. I mean, it's just teeters on absurd is really what it teeters on.
And his car in John's driveway.
Yes.
Was there a decision made to take one or two cars?
One car.
What was the plan?
The plan was to get into Carrie's car and to go and look for John. I wanted to go thinking, let's go to Tom Beatty's, but Miss Reed was pretty adamant that we go to Fairview first.
You said that at times there was some arguing or bickering, or Miss Roberts was raising her voice to the defendant?
Yes.
Who made the decision to go to Fairview?
Ultimately, Carrie said, all right, we'll go there.
Great
Almost
question.
like to shut her up.
When you got into the car, where was everybody? When you got in.
Okay. So O'Harry one sends $10 and says, Sam, wouldn't everyone inside 34 Fairview have to be sociopaths to witness a brutal beating and not do or say anything about it? Just to go back. Yes. And that's not exactly what happened, right? So I don't think that this is a situation where everybody just went back to eating and drinking, right? I mean, we know that they weren't watching videos, for example, because Jen wasn't watching that stupid It's Raining Men video. She was watching that on the 25th or the 27th, but not actually on the 29th. So no, I don't think they were going back to eating and drinking and watching videos. And that's the part that I think all of us are trying to work out when we think about the details, right? Who was where and doing what and when? And that's the question. That's the reason why most of us are still trying to put all the pieces together. For example, and I'll be just very straight. For example, did this happen? I mean, Jen tells us, you might have seen, if you saw my opening, I pulled this out and I put it in the open because it was such an important statement, potentially. Jen tells us that whatever happened inside was completely separate and apart from what was happening outside. So we know that Brian Higgins points at John in the bar and says, you, me, let's go. Then he texts and says, are you coming here? So we know that Brian Higgins wanted to talk to John. I mean, that's not a secret. That's what happened. We also know that at 11:30, 45 minutes before John is no longer with us, or very likely no longer with us because his phone, all interaction on the phone stops. We know that he is texting Karen, did you make a decision? Now, if you watch Higgins carefully, he's wasted, really wasted. And the one thing that these guys lie a lot about that night, one of the things that Higgins and Brian Albert lie a lot about is the amount they drank. My guess is, based on what they're deceiving us about early on in that night, the whole trip to New York and the wake and missing the funeral, whatever, that they went to, I don't know how much you know about this, but they went to New York to go allegedly to a couple of fallen officers in New York City at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan. But the point is, they were back earlier before they say they were, because they had been drinking pretty much like all afternoon and well into the night. Now, Brian Higgins is wasted. You can see he's like rubbing his face, he's like really drunk. So it is very likely that what happened here is they get into a fight, and that's not just me speculating. Like, if you look at the injuries to John O'Keefe, he's got bruises on both of his hands. He's got a cut over on his eyebrow and on the side of his nose. He's got bruising to the temple. So it looks like he could have been punched in the eye, like so straight, and then a hook to the temple. That is what is on his face. That is what is on his hands. That's not just me guessing, right? That's the reason why I am saying that it appears that he got into a fight, because those are the cuts and those are where the bruises are on his body. There are no bruises anywhere else. Bruises are on his hands, on the temple, and then there's cut on the side of the nose and the eyebrow. So it looks like exactly where you would be cut and bruised if you were to get into a fist fight, right? Then we have the cuts on the arm, and it just turns out, lo and behold, oddly, that there is a documented aggressive German Shepherd dog that weighs 80 pounds in the house that never makes a peep, that nobody ever sees, that not even Jen sees, allegedly, on the morning that she goes into the house. No police ever hear the dog. Dog never makes any sound, doesn't alert the owners, according to them, that there's anybody on their front lawn. I mean, seriously, that's what they're telling us, okay? That this aggressive German Shepherd never made a peep. Nobody ever saw the dog, and the dog never alerted the owners that the cavalry was on their front lawn with Karen Reed screaming like a maniac, okay? And Jen McCabe on the 911 call herself acknowledging what a crazy scene it was that morning. There were no sirens, but there were fire trucks, there were lights, there was a proper big fire truck, small fire truck, right? All the different police officers in their cars. Like, it's a crazy scene, undoubtedly, okay? So, is it likely that a fight breaks out outside? Yes. Is it possible that the people in the house were not privy to that information in their entirety until after that happened? Very possible, right? Very possible that whatever happened to John happened, separate and apart from where the group is gathering. And then the question is, okay, if that happens separate and apart, at what point is everybody in the house alerted to this thing happening? And that's why many people believe that Colin must have been involved, because why would Brian Albert, fall on the sword for Brian Higgins? It doesn't make sense. Why would all these people jeopardize, put themselves in harm's way, lie to police or lie to the court, whatever, just to kind of save another law enforcement officer in Brian Higgins? That's why people believe that Colin had to have been involved, right? Now, the answer to the question to me is probably alcohol. It was probably a series of very bad decisions that these people all make because they're all wasted. Had alcohol not been a thing in the world, these guys, John O'Keefe is alive and well, and this never happens. The other thing you have to know is that there's documented evidence that Brian Albert, when he's drinking, not only gets into fights, but has had fights or altercations with other cops when he's drinking. So that's another thing that has been documented in the past. When he's drinking, he fights. Was that happening on that night? Very possibly. I don't know. But I don't think that we're dealing with sociopaths. I think we're dealing very likely with a group of people who have a drinking problem, many of which, not all, but many of whom probably have drinking problems. You also have to know that in Canton, Massachusetts, alcohol is like a part of the fabric of the community. It's the reason why when their kids are playing a basketball game, the parents are going out to the bar before and after, whether the kids are, whatever the kids are doing, they're doing that separately, but the parents are all at the bar. They're eating at the bar before, and then they're back at the bar after the games. So, it's a big part of this community. And I think that's a factor, and you just can't poo-poo it. It's a very significant factor. And when you hear what Karen Reed had to say about that time, she'll say the one regret she has is about how much she had been drinking during that time, because they were drinking all the time. Yeah, that's what happens, right? You get swept up in like the whole bar culture. That's why she was texting Brian Higgins, because she knew him from the bar, from the hillside, right? So I don't think that we're dealing with all sociopaths. I think we're dealing with people who are alcohol abusers, alcohol dependent, very likely, and who made several bad decisions. But at the end of the day, this man died. John O'Keefe died fast. So he hit his head. He got this coup contra coup injury. He shattered the back of his skull. And because he shattered the back of the skull at the brainstem, he died very quickly. So what happened is a fight turned into a dead police officer. And instead of, calling and telling the cops that it was self-defense or whatever, they made a different decision. They tried to make it look like he never came into the house and like he fell or got hit by a car or got hit by a plow or whatever. That is why they had the glass out there with him, to make it look like he slipped and fell on his way into the house and he never came in the house. That's what they were going to say. I don't think there was ever a plan to involve Karen Reed until she inserted herself into the situation, because she started running around that morning saying, could I have hit him? Could I have hit him? Did I do this? Right? That is how she inserts herself in this sequence of events and makes herself a target. And even after that, it wasn't until Brian Higgins tells Jennifer McCabe at the Minion meeting at around 10:30, 11 that morning, or I guess it was officially between 8:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. when they all get back together after the cops come and the scene is cleared and they're all back in the house together. All of a sudden, Brian Higgins hears Jen recounting what Karen is like on the scene, and he tells her to call Mike Lank, their buddy cop, their long life friend, who's gotten them all out of trouble before, has gotten Chris Albert out of trouble in the past. They call him back over, and that's when they tell him about the could I have hit him stuff, which was not a thing in Jen's initial police reports, right? She doesn't say anything about could I have hit him? Did I hit him? All this nonsense. That doesn't happen until after the fact. And Brian Higgins is the one who everybody says, at least Brian Higgins and Jen McCabe say, told her to call Mike Lank back to the house. So I don't think they're sociopaths. I think that's the thing about this. This is a complicated story. And like I said, when you look very closely at the facts, it just becomes impossible not to keep digging, because the lying is so outrageous. I mean, it really is. It's not like invented. There's outright lying over and over and over again. And it's not one of them. It's not two of them. It's not three of them. It's not four of them. It's everyone. Everyone. It's Colin Albert saying, I've never been in a fight. And within 24 hours, 3 or 4 videos appear online of him in fist fights with other people in school, on the street, like in the actual middle school or high school or wherever they were, in a school setting with lockers in the background, right? Like, that's how outright and overt the lying is. It's, no, our dog, our very aggressive German Shepherd, never barked. No, there was no dog. I didn't see a dog. It's like, wait a minute. I have a 4-pound Chihuahua. And if there's a person on the steps, she goes nuts. Like, you're going to tell me that a very aggressive 80-pound German Shepherd didn't alert the owners to the fact that there was a bunch of people in the front yard? Like, that didn't happen. So why would you lie about that? That's the question. Why lie if there's nothing to hide? So once you ask that question, then you have to start looking for answers to that question, right? That is the question. What are these people lying about? Why would you, if you have nothing to do with this, wouldn't you just open your entire life and say, here's everything? I didn't do anything. So I didn't do anything wrong. So who cares? I'm an open book. Just look at everything. Please clear me. And not only just clear me from a police perspective, but I want my name cleared. I want the public to know I didn't do this. I want everybody to know it wasn't me. Here's my dog. Here's why we got rid of our dog 2 months after this happened. Here's why we just, like they sold their house. Do you understand? This wasn't just his house. Brian Albert sold his parents' family home. Okay. And they sold that home. What was it? 6 months after John O'Keefe dies on their front lawn? We think that's just a coincidence. I mean, it's just, I don't know. We could go on. This is the whole point, right? Like, that's why we're all still here, because it never ends. It never ends. I'm telling you, every single day, I'll turn my head to the left and watch a video of a different police officer who I wasn't even thinking about, never even knew to look at. And all of a sudden, you catch them in a bold-faced lie. Like, for example, with the chain of custody reports. I didn't know about that. That came up 3 days ago when on Melanie Little's feed, she finds a chain of custody report with all these cops, all the names that we know and love, right? Proctor, Buchanan, Fanning, the whole shabam, every single one of them. DeChico, I can't think of all their names right now, but all of them. This very detailed, beautiful chain of custody report where every shell casing has a number and it has like a clear who had it, when they got it, where they put it, right? All the little storage places have nice little numbers. There was, when asked about a chain of custody report for this case, Yuri Buchanan acted like he had never heard of a chain of custody report. I mean, outright. They lie like you've never seen people lie. Well, why? Why lie? Why isn't there a chain of custody report? A police officer died. Why is there no chain of custody on any of the evidence? Like it never stops. I don't even know. We could spend the entire night just going over every egregious lie and all of what appears to be police corruption. I mean, it's not even just corruption at this point. It's an actual concerted effort to hide, manipulate, and control evidence. And it's not paranoia. It is what happened in this case. It's insane. It's insane. It really, really is.
To Kerry Roberts' car, where was everybody sitting?
Kerry was driving. I was in the front and passenger. Karen was in the back, in the middle, kind of peeking her head through between us.
I want you to take us through the ride from John's house at Meadows until you first get to Fairview. So as you pull out of, or Kerry Roberts pulls out of John's driveway, what is the mood inside that car?
I'd say it was starting to get tense because Karen was just continuously screaming. Kerry was trying to focus on driving, and Karen's behavior in the back of the car was a bit erratic.
When you say erratic, let's give some detail. What do you mean by that?
Yes, she would go from sitting back to leaning up in between us, and she would yell Kerry's name 3 times. Then she would yell my name's three times. And then she would yell, could I hit him? Did I hit him? Over and over again.
When she was repeating these questions or phrases that she was yelling, did you respond in any way?
I don't believe I did, no.
How about Kerry?
Kerry was telling her to shut up and to buckle up.
Was she buckled?
I don't believe so.
You began your drive from Mr. O'Keefe's home at Meadows to Fairview. Is the weather getting better?
No, it's getting worse.
Is the visibility still difficult?
It was terrible.
As you began that drive to Fairview, was there anything that you were doing on the way?
Yes, I was just kind of looking out the window intently to see if I saw anything.
Oh my God.
John, which I know it sounds
Okay.
crazy,
So, you just saw it. I don't know if you noticed it, but it just happened right in front of your eyes. Now you're starting to see what Jen looks like when she goes into like the full-blown acting part of her testimony. I'm trying to come up with the best way to summarize what the particulars are of this, but it's very clear when you see it. she completely changes. She sort of becomes maybe like more exaggerative, but it's like real performance mode. And it's different than when she's just kind of throwing out indicators. It is like she's really acting and she gets all very into it. And we just saw the switch happen. So I'm going to rewind like 2 seconds so you can see the switch to now we're in acting mode. And that makes sense because now we're getting to the part where she's going to pull up to the scene and has to call 911. Okay. You got to see this. It's like, what is this?
I was just kind of looking out the window intently to see if I saw anything.
What were you looking for?
I guess John, which I know it sounds crazy, but I didn't know where the hell he was.
Wow.
Did you have any difficulty seeing from the car the side of the road?
Yes.
Did you see what direction Miss Roberts was looking when she was driving?
Well, she, it was hard because she needed to focus on driving because the conditions were that bad.
Did you have a chance to see the defendant on that drive at all?
Yes.
Was she looking out the windows with you?
No, she was popping back and forth and screaming.
Was it constant screaming or did it change at all?
She would scream and then kind of sit back and she'd almost be like quiet for a minute. It was like, okay, good. And then she'd start again.
In those quiet times, do you know what, if anything, she was doing?
I didn't know what she was doing that morning, no.
How long did it take to get to Fairview?
I don't know. I'm going to assume maybe 10 minutes, like with the weather, maybe 10 minutes. I'm not, give or take approximately.
As you're approaching 34 Fairview Road, before you get there,
I know.
Is Fairview going to be on your left side, driver's side, or on the right side?
As we're pulling up, it's on the driver's side. Carrie's going to take a left down Fairview off of Chapman.
I want you to take us back to that morning, about 20 or 30 yards before you get to Fairview.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the car with Miss Roberts and the defendant?
Yes.
What's happening in the car?
Karen's continues screaming, and at that point she had asked if John could be cheating on her and if John could be with Bella's mom.
And then what happens?
I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. I was like, what are you talking about? Why would he be with Bella's mom?
What are you talking about?
And then Carrie said, well, do you think he could have walked to, there was another woman years before that John had dated who lived on the next street over to her house.
And as you approach that area before you get to the flagpole, does anything remarkable happen?
No.
Got to make sure you get in the other girlfriend's house that was mentioned that morning, right? Just to stick it in a little bit more.
What happens next?
As we're driving down the street, I just say to Carrie, because she doesn't know where my sister lives, oh, her house is just at the bottom of the street.
Visibility still difficult?
I just say.
Yes, awful.
What happens next?
We continue, driving, and we're driving slowly past, the line of, I guess, bushes and the flagpole area. And all of a sudden, Karen's screaming from the back, there he is, or something to the effect of, there he is, let me out.
Did you know what she was talking about?
I had no idea.
When she was yelling that, did you look out the window?
Yeah, we had our eyes peeled out the window.
Did you see anything?
Nothing but snow.
How long was she yelling about whatever it is she was saying?
Carrie, she screamed, stop. So Carrie stopped pretty
interesting.
Quickly.
So here, remember that Jen would not have seen John on the lawn that morning, right? She would not have known exactly where he was. She knew there was a plan to put him out in the snow, right? To make it look like he fell or hit by a plow, whatever. But she did not know where he was exactly. She just knew there was a plan for that to happen, right? Now, we know that because she was Googling how long to die in the cold. And in my mind, she's Googling that not to find out how to kill him, but to try to figure out whether or not they're going to be able to pull off the possibility that he had hypothermia and that it wasn't a dead body, right? So that's to me what the Google search is about. The Google search is about, well, if he's found, are they going to be able to decipher whether or not it's somebody who has hypothermia or somebody who's dead, right? Because remember, these guys are all first responders, not Jen, obviously, but the rest of the group. I mean, Brian Higgins was a tactical medic. Remember how proud he is of telling us that? He was an experienced firefighter. In fact, Brian Higgins is offered the lieutenant position, or I don't know if he took the job ever. Maybe he was lieutenant. I know he was offered it at the very least. And then he comes from a long line of firefighters. So for him to leave the fire department to go to the ATF was like a really big deal. I read that in one of the pro prosecution books on the case. That was why I read it, was because I wanted to learn more about the witnesses in this case. And one of the things that came out was who Brian Higgins is. This is somebody who's very well trained. That and Brian Albert was a Marine in Desert Storm, right? These guys are really the top of their field at what they do. They're very, very, very skilled, and they are first responders. They would have known, like probably any of you that are also first responders, that if you come up onto a scene and somebody is out in the snow and their body temperature is at anything less than what it should be, 98, 97, 96, as it drops, that you cannot pronounce that person dead, deceased, until they've gone to the hospital and life-saving effort and measures are taken to bring them back to life. That's really important. These guys knew that, right? They knew that if he was found outside and it looked like he'd been there maybe all night, he could have looked like he had hypothermia. And again, remember, if he had hypothermia, then he didn't die by a fight in the house, right? I mean, you see what I'm saying? So to me, that's what happened. That was like a big part of what happened here. Oh, wait, I'm trying to bring up you guys' super chats. Hello. Okay. Twigs the Gemini, hello, says, we also know they all lied about how great of a time everyone had at the waterfall. That's true too. Nobody acknowledged that Brian's summoning John outside. Right. That's another thing. Nobody acknowledged. And we know that Brian and Nicole, at the very least, were very aware of what was going on. Right. And we know because we can see them. We see them on video. We see the first thing that John does when he first walks into the bar. He actually, I think, hits Brian Higgins first as he comes in around that corner towards the bar. He sees Brian Higgins before anybody else, gives him like a, whatever bro hug, and then keeps going. And immediately Brian Higgins says something to Brian Albert, like leans in and is buddying up with Brian Albert. 20 minutes later, they're in the fighting stance doing the whole thing, right? Nicole is also kind of in on it with them, which is interesting. I'm not sure if it's Microdots that does a whole breakdown of the three of them. Somebody does a whole breakdown of the behavior between Higgins, Nicole, and Brian Albert. And she's more involved than we kind of see at first glance, for sure. So yeah, that's just one, again, that's just one other thing, but there's so much. And that's in that instance with Brian Higgins at the waterfall. We also have Chris Albert interjecting, right? He grabs him, and it looks like, from an outside perspective, it looks like Chris is trying to maybe stop whatever's happening or broker, calm down Brian Higgins, right? It's hard to see what exactly is going on, but it appears as though Chris Albert is at least aware that Brian Higgins is evidencing aggression, and it appears like it's towards John. I mean, that is how it appears. Now, I had theorized that maybe who he's mad at is not John, but is Karen. And his plan was to out Karen for the text to him. And then it backfires and John's drunk and John starts a fight with him. I don't know. I don't know. Could it have been that, Brian Higgins was going to try to fight for Karen? I doubt it. That's why in my mind, I sort of kind of flipped it that maybe what he was going to do is try to out Karen because he was pissed at her, right? The well text. It seems like he was frustrated with Karen and he's drunk. I mean, remember, these people are wasted. I mean, he's wasted. He's stumbling. I mean, Brian Higgins is really, really wasted. And you can't just like overlook that because that's what we're dealing with. It's insane. Josie Lou and Co. sends $49.99. My God, thank you, Josie Lou. O'Harry accepted the opposite. They located the phone, took it outside, airplane mode, clean, washed his clothes, watched him die, did not render help. That's true. It was trash him, get sell on Faraday bag, manipulate it, and blame it on the plow until 4:53 a.m. call. Right. So that's the whole other thing, right? I mean, there's like you were saying, there's just so much. There's so much. There's so much. It's like the case that just never stops. It just keeps going. It just keeps going. And right now we're just talking mostly about the people in the house at 34 Fairview. You can't even start. You open up the cops can of worms and it's like the cards just fall immediately. The behavior on the part of the police is just overwhelmingly egregious. Like everybody, soup to nuts. But just looking at the people in the house, it's just not good. To say the least, it's it's not good. It's not good. It's not good at all. It really, really isn't. Let's see if we can get through this. I really want to get to Cross.
There he is. She could have kicked the door, like, let me out of here.
When she was kicking the door, what were you doing?
I was just like, what the heck? What is going on?
What happens next?
She gets out. Kerry looks at me and said something. I said, like, she's batshit crazy.
Then what happened?
Then Kerry got out. Then I got out of the car, walked around the back of the car, and was walking like over to where I could see the girls were.
Now, at that point, you were in Kerry Roberts' car.
Yes.
It had his headlights on.
Yes.
Was it facing up the street of Fairview?
So note, she said, I was walking towards like where I saw the girls were. So that's important. Because remember, like something, if something is like something, what that actually means is it's not that thing. So what we know is that she's moving like in that direction, but not actually in that direction. So she's not going to where the girls are, is what she just told you.
Well, we had come down the hill, so yes, up the street.
There was no other lighting in that area?
I do not believe so.
No fire engines or ambulances at that point?
No.
No police cars?
No.
Any street lights?
It was dark.
When you got out of the car, did you
remember,
look towards the area of the flagpole?
There can't be street lights, right? Why not? Because they have to come up with some reason why all these people were walking in and out at 34 Fairview, this very small front lawn that you have to go to. I saw that some of the people in the chat are planning a trip to Canton, to the pizza shop. You got to make sure you check out the lawn at 34 Fairview because you can't even imagine how small that lawn is until you're standing there. I don't know why pictures do not do it justice. It is the smallest front lawn. Seriously, I remember thinking, if my sister and I were like laying toe to head, like, foot to head, we would be, the two of us, we'd be from the curb to the front stoop, like to the steps on the front yard. It is a very, very, very small front yard. It doesn't matter whether you have lights or no lights. It makes no difference whatsoever. If there's a dead person, a 6 foot, 2 pound, 230 pound man on a front lawn, you're not going to just walk around him, not see him. We're talking about multiple people going in and out of this house. Remember Matt McCabe goes in and out. He forgets his jacket. He's got to go back in. He says he uses the front entrance. I mean, it's just, it didn't happen, right?
Yes.
Could you see anything at that point?
No.
How close did you get to the area of the flagpole before you could first actually see something?
Well, I saw the shadowy figures of.
And remember, guys, it's snowing, right? And so even on very dark nights, when it's snowing, what happens? Well, it's white. So the white reflects off the moonlight or whatever, and you kind of get this like sheen on everything, which helps you see.
Of Carrie and Karen. And it wasn't until I got very close over to them that I saw Carrie removing the snow from John's face.
Is that the first moment you realized that that was John O'Keefe on the ground?
Yes, it was.
Sorry, guys.
When you see Carrie removing the snow from John's face, what do you do?
I was frozen. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that was
of course not
him just lying there.
Tell us what you're seeing.
What do I see? I see Carrie just wiping the snow off. Karen had straddled him and had lifted her shirt and his shirt and was laying on him, and Carrie was screaming at her to get off of him. And I was literally just stunned. I mean, there he was.
Oh my God.
What did John look like when you saw him?
I couldn't see much but his face, because the rest was snow and Karen was moving over him, but he just looked like just him, but just like frozen.
Now, the thing, remember about Jen is she knows her rehearsed statements pretty well. She does them pretty well. I mean, much better than Brian Higgins, who just botches it. Even Nicole Albert, a lot of these people don't do so well with their rehearsed statements. And it makes me think that perhaps this group elected for the second trial intentionally sort of supported the idea that it should be Jennifer McCabe that does the 3-day long testimony, because she's better at the rehearsed statements than, most of the others.
What did you do?
At first, I just stood there for a minute because I couldn't believe it was him. And then Carrie Roberts and I made eye contact. And I knew, I was like, all right, I'm going to call 911. But I think I knew in that moment that John, was dead.
Did you call 911?
Yeah, I started to call 911, and Carrie and Karen were just screaming. And so I walked back towards Carrie's car. And then Carrie was also yelling at me to go to the back of the car to look for blankets and towels. So as I was calling 911, I was at the back of the car looking for the towels and the blankets to bring over to Carrie. And while I was doing that, I believe 911 answered.
Did you?
Right. I'm at my sister's house. Once again, let me remind you all. She's now on her sister's very small front yard. And we're supposed to believe, she's just for the first time now finding out that her very good friend, who she loves so much, is on the ground on her sister's front yard. Her sister, she's so close to, right? Now, forget about the fact that she's already called to her sister at 5:07 and spoke to them for 39 seconds, or at least the call connected for 39 seconds. But according to Jen, she never spoke to her sister. According to Nicole, she never spoke to Jen, but the call was answered and connected for 39 seconds at 5:07, which is immediately following when Karen Reed calls Jennifer McCabe. Okay. So remember, that's a fact on a cell record that Jennifer McCabe admits to, even though she never told anybody about that phone call. And the only reason that that phone call ever comes out is because somebody, we believe, rumor has it was Mark Betterow, in the very short time that he joined Karen's team before the second trial, just before the second trial, that he was looking through the phone records and he happened to catch it. And for some reason, it was overlooked before the first trial. So she was never asked about that 507 phone call, not until the second trial. The first trial, we knew about the 607 and 608 phone calls to her sister's house from the outside, right? After she hangs up with 911, she immediately calls her sister again. But remember, the front door is allegedly unlocked. The front door that she walks in 25 minutes later is unlocked. Does she go into her sister's house to get blankets? Does she go into her sister's house to get the first responder from Desert Storm that lives upstairs? No. We don't want to bother them. Let's not wake them up. No, no, no. Instead, I'm going to mess around in Carrie's trunk of the car and look for blankets, which by itself is so just, even if that was the only issue, is by itself just, I mean, what do you want to call that? Incompetence at best? Just unimaginable incompetence? Like, what is wrong with you? You say you love this man and you don't go into your sister's house to try to help him? Forget about the fact that the 911 call is just as incriminating as it gets. Forget about all that for a second. We're trying to pretend like she's telling us the truth. We know she's not, but we're pretending she is. You don't go into your sister's house to get help? Like, come on. You can't be on the phone and in the house at the same time? Can't be on the phone calling 911 and walking in the front door and grabbing a blanket? This house that you've been to how many hundreds of times before? You've known Brian Albert since you're what, in the sixth grade? No. Let me get it right. I think it's the fourth grade, right? She's known Brian Albert like her whole life. Not to mention her sister, Nicole, has been in love with him since like the seventh grade, okay? This is Uncle Brian. This is somebody she's very, 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 very close to. But she doesn't go into the house. Nope. She doesn't even think to go in the house. That's what she's telling us right now.
Speak to 911?
I did, yes.
Did you get the towels and blankets that Carrie had
Unbelievable.
requested?
I did, yes.
After your phone call with 911 and you had the towels and blankets, tell us what happens next.
So after I called 911, I went back over to Carrie, Karen, and John. And at that point, Carrie asked if I would take over compressions. So she got up and I started doing compressions, and Karen was doing mouth to mouth.
When you started doing compressions, were you touching John over his clothes or touching his skin?
I don't remember.
Did you at that point get a chance to touch John's body and see how it felt temperature-wise?
I just remember when I was doing the compressions, I don't really know how to explain it. It just felt very funny.
I'm sorry.
It just wasn't like normal. I don't. I can't think of how to describe the way it felt when I was trying to press down, but it was like resistance.
I have a few explanations or a few ways of describing it. I don't know about you, but I could think of one obvious one. Like, I don't know, dead. That's one, maybe. Just a thought. You can't push down on the man's chest, Jen. I don't know. That's a thought. I mean, you had no problem telling dispatch 5 times. No problem. I think he's dead. No, you don't understand. He's gone. I think he's passed away. Like, how many different languages does she try to communicate to dispatch that he's not there anymore? but she can't figure out the words to tell us here when Hank Brennan's asking questions in a courtroom. Can't figure out what the words are. But she did know what the words were, just to be clear, when the 911 dispatch was on the other end of the line. She knew exactly how to explain it then, but not here to Hank, and not even going to go through all the indicators in what she just said. I think it's pretty clear all of us understand what happened in what she just said. But Ms. Parks is in the house. Hi, Miss Parks. Sends $49.99, says Sam. I so appreciate your thoughtful analysis and breakdown of all the bad actors in this case. I know, right? It's terrible. Right down to the fact that Jen is wearing a cross. That is Jesus' actual height and weight in gold. They are all horrible. I know. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support. And I have to be honest, like, it's so horrible that there are times when I am just like, I kind of just wish it would all go away. Like, because it's tough. I mean, it's tough to see it. And there are times when I'm like, I don't want to use the word trauma. I mean the word low. I'm using this in a euphemistic kind of way. I'm not honestly traumatized, but it is a little bit like when you stop and you think like, God, this is so horrible. And I get it. Like, to the point that somebody was making earlier about, well, are these people all sociopaths? No, I think that these were people in survival mode. And I'm not going to get into the whole way that personality disorders and alcohol use disorders mirror each other or are one and the same until they aren't. We can get into that for a different conversation. But personality disorders you cannot detect them apart from a substance use disorder. So if somebody comes in for treatment and they have, let's say, a heroin use disorder or an alcohol use disorder or even a marijuana use disorder, and they also have someone somewhere diagnose them as having a narcissistic personality disorder, unless or until that person goes on to recover from a substance use disorder, you can't tell whether that narcissistic personality disorder is legitimate or if it is the substance use disorder, because you can't tell them apart. On paper, someone with an active addiction looks just like a narcissist, right? I mean, they have the same behavioral traits. So when someone goes on and becomes recovered or is in recovery, as people like to think of it, from a substance use disorder, they no longer have any narcissistic traits. And of course, someone who is a narcissist does not outgrow it. That is their personality. That's why it's called a personality disorder. It's forever. It's life, right? But you can't tell it apart. So that's why I was saying earlier, to the question about sociopathy or someone being a psychopath, that's why I was talking about addiction, because you can't tell them apart. They are one and the same until they aren't, if that makes any sense. I guess that gets a little bit confusing, but if you understand addiction or if you know someone who's addicted, then think about them and think about their behavior. Think about how they sometimes are like Jekyll and Hyde, right? Or how they seem really selfish and you're like, how could they do that? How could they do that to somebody that they love? And they lie constantly and they're only out for themselves and they stole from somebody that they care about or whatever, right? They don't come home when they say they're going to. They never do what they say they're going to do. All of the things that you see when someone is inactive in addiction are the same things you're going to see when somebody is narcissistic, right? Or is sociopathic even, right? Because, in the world I live in, narcissism and sociopathy are basically siblings, first cousins, and some people use them interchangeably. So my point being that's why I brought up substance use disorders when I was talking about the behavior of the people in the house on that night, because again, they are one and the same until they aren't. My guess is that for these folks, anybody who would have been leaning towards abusing substances during that time, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess it'll be what, 4 years in January. Well, that has accelerated, right? Like substance use disorders don't get better over time. But if you have an accelerant like this, if you have this kind of absurdity in your life, if you have this kind of, all of us out there in the world making these kinds of accusations, saying terrible things that you are trying like hell to defend against because you don't want anybody to believe this about you, I imagine that alcohol has become a much bigger problem, is what I would say. A much bigger problem. And everybody has mentioned, lots of people mentioned that Jen's demeanor changed. She must be on something. If you look at how she was trial 1 and trial 2, she definitely took something. It's very difficult to tell whether that means she was on some kind of antidepressant regimen from trial 1 to trial 2. Could she be on some type of anti-anxiety medication? She could. She'd have to probably be adjusted to it in order to do that before the trial. Think of it this way. If you're going to take, let's say you were going to take like a benzo, even Ativan or lorazepam or Klonopin or Valium or Xanax, any of those drugs, the way that drugs work, you might have heard, I know that this was when I was in college. This was like something that people, maybe like an old wives' tale, like people told each other, if you get high while you're studying for a test, when you're high and you take the test, you'll do better on it than you would if you weren't, right? And that is true. It's called state-dependent thinking or state-dependent theory or whatever. And what it means is that something is going to be much easier for you to remember. Like if you were in a classroom in high school, college, grammar school, and you took a test, let's say you took the final exam in a different classroom from the one that you were in for that class, you're going to do potentially a lot worse on that exam because all of the subtle senses or, sensory information coming in from the classroom is helping to cue your memory for the material that you were learning in that classroom. So if you take the final exam in a different classroom, it is not helping you to remember everything that you learned in that classroom. And it's the same principle when you take drugs, except if you are in such an incredibly different mindset, like if she studied for this performance sober and then comes in under the influence of Xanax or any benzodiazepine, she's going to botch all of the things that she's got to get right. So there's no way that she could have taken that just before she walks in the courtroom. Like Paul O'Keefe was under the influence of alcohol during the first trial. I don't think he testified in the second. You can tell. I mean, he's slurring, his eyes are glossy. I think he even admitted it. You can tell. I'm not giving up any secrets. It's very obvious. You can tell he was intoxicated before his testimony. It's really insignificant. His testimony was not extraordinarily consequential, right? However, Jennifer McCabe's is. So there's no way that she all of a sudden starts taking benzos just before she has to testify. If she's doing that, she would have had to have started doing that long before as she's getting ready for this trial, because she would not be able to remember her rehearsed statements. She wouldn't be able to remember her lines because when you are in such a dramatically different frame of mind, it's mood state is how I would say it, but frame of mind, it's not just a mental state, it's a physiological change. And the physiological change is so strong that literally she would not be able to remember the rehearsed lines from one state to the next. So my point is, something changed. But if it was something like a benzodiazepine, it means that she would have had to have started to take those so long before that she's very well adjusted to them by the time she gets to this. Is that possible? Definitely. Absolutely. In fact, would it be surprising if the whole group is on benzodiazepines? No. Life has gotten much more stressful for these people. Let's be honest. Of course it has. I mean, like, yeah, it's stressful. Well, when you get yourself involved in this kind of catastrophic mess, you and your family members involved, yeah, I'm life is stressful. You're leaving the house. I'm sure it's not like you're just skipping along anymore, right? You got to worry about where you're going, who's going to be there. And these people, they live like in the lion's den. Okay. Now, Michael Proctor, when he was questioned by Matt Gutman in his interview, which he lies terribly in, but he's talking about how, those are just what the loud minority, because Matt asks him, like, these are your people who believe that you framed an innocent woman, you planted evidence. He's like, oh, that's just the loud minority. And you're like, no, these are the people that live in your neighborhood. Now, maybe you don't interact with them so much. Maybe you only are around and communicating with people who try to tell you that, they believe you and you're honest and you're A-okay. But you can't tell me that Michael Proctor doesn't walk outside everywhere he goes. You go to the grocery store, you go to your kid's ball game. I mean, any convenience store, get gas, anywhere that these people go, they are recognizable. I mean, at this point, anywhere that they go, yes, they have their friends that, are going to support them no matter what, that believe them no matter what. But they're mixed amongst that is the rest of the public everywhere they are. I mean, that cannot be comfortable. And you heard them all tell us why should they have to leave? This is their town. This is their community. They love Canton. They're not going anywhere. Well, okay. That's your choice. It's a free country, but don't expect not to have people looking at you and for you to have to be looking over your shoulder because you don't know. You might run into a pink mafia. I don't know. That's what some of their complaints were in this article today about, how difficult their lives are now. Well, yeah, probably, don't get yourself involved with a dead police officer on your front lawn and then you won't have to worry about it. Tell the truth. Oh, it's so frustrating.
How long did you try to give compressions and give aid to John for?
Until the police came.
Mr. Brennan, why don't we here?
Okay. Saved by the bell, Jen. All right. So good. Excellent. We are going to move now to cross-examination. Yay. We're going to move to the cross-examination of Jen McCabe, which is very, very exciting. All right, let me get out of this. Remove this. Let me get ready, and then I will read some chats, and then we will finally get to the good stuff, which is the cross-examination of Jennifer McCabe. We don't need to finish the rest of direct. That pretty much is the end. There's only a few more questions, I think. Let me see here. Let me just get it queued up for us. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So that is ready for us. Very exciting. I'm excited to get it going. Nicole had to clean up. That's right. Nicole and her cleaning. I'm telling you, I'm thinking about doing like a full analysis of Nicole because she really is interesting. At first, she was boring, with like her nonsense and, oh, that's my thing. I just like, I like to clean. It's It's really, you know what though, Twigs? It's like the only thing that they all get right. It's the only rehearsed statement that everybody in the group gets right. Can you think of another one? Because I think that's the only one. Like they all screw up obviously the pictures and where Brian Albert and Brian Higgins are in the house. They can't get that right. They get wrong where they are and what they're doing. Like I think that's the one thing that everybody gets right, that Nicole is like doing the mom thing and she likes to clean. And so she's cleaning. It reminds me like Brian Albert Jr. gets that one pretty good. I Plow Paralegal PDX sends $25, says loving your videos and lives. What is the name of the book you read that was I'll put it in the chat before the night is over. I don't remember the name of the book, but it was the book that, I always forget his name. He's the guy, it's not Yellow Cottage. Yellow Cottage, is that right? Yellow Cottage, Yellow Cotton. I always want to say Yellow Cottontails, but I know it's not that. He's the guy that was friends with Karen and Aiden way back in the beginning. And then I don't know if he had a falling out with Turtle Boy. I really don't know what the story is. I was like way late to the party. Like I didn't know, I'm embarrassed saying this a little bit, but like I didn't really know Turtle Boy was until well after I had already gotten involved in watching the first trial. I just didn't know like the whole story, the backstory. I was just getting to know like who these people were in the trial during their testimony. And then as time went on, I learned more about like the whole backstory and who Aiden was and how Karen Reed how her story got out there before the first trial. I didn't really know that whole thing. And so he was involved in the falling out. I've seen him periodically, like during the second trial. I saw him once with Julie Grant on Court TV. I didn't spend more than about 3 seconds watching it, but he was there with them. And so I read that book, which was really interesting because I think did an interview the reason I read it was because he actually interviewed Brian Higgins. So Brian Higgins got on the phone with them and actually did an interview with him. That was what I decided I wanted to read it for, was to learn more about Brian Higgins and what he would say to somebody who he was giving an interview with. And I did learn a little bit more about Brian Higgins from that. I also learned that it was through that conversation that this author, Kevin, is that right? Might be. I know I'm so bad. I'm so bad, you guys, with things like book titles and names like this. It's also like what he indicated got him to start thinking these people were innocent. He believed him. He believed that he was like a good firefighter and he came from a long line of firefighters and this is what happens. Like I can tell you from having been in Chris Albert's pizza shop, this is just true. Like I'm just being 100% honest. From being in that pizza shop and having like a pleasant interaction with Chris. And then, I come from, like my father's a sports radio person and I grew up in sports radio. And so when I walked in and I heard WEEI's on in the shop, and it's just kind of like, it's kind of like a New York style pizza shop, but in, Canton. And so I'm not going to lie, it's harder to shit on Chris Albert because I had a pleasant interaction with him and I saw this is a familiar environment for me. Like this is a guy who sits all day in his pizza shop, and I love pizza, listening to sports radio. Now it's Boston sports radio, and I grew up in New York with New York sports radio. So it's a little different, but not really, like my father used to go on WEEI routinely whenever the New York and Boston sports teams would play each other in some kind of rivalry, which happens relatively, wasn't uncommon, right? So that, I think that's what happens, right? The closer that you get, the harder it is to want to see somebody as guilty. You don't want to think of them that way. That's what I was saying about Carrie Roberts. Like, if you like somebody and you become friendly and you become close to them, or you start to relate to them, and in the same way that this guy had a call with Brian Higgins, he liked him. He thought, I like this guy. He's like me, right? And I think the guy that wrote that book, I want to say his name is Kevin, but I might be wrong about that. Like, he is also, I think, from the same area. So again, you start feeling like you have something in common, and it gets harder and harder to want to see somebody in a negative light. And I get that, right? I get that. It is what it is. But that's why I was saying earlier, I am not somebody who believes that the people in the house set forth to murder John O'Keefe. Like, some people might believe that. I do not. I think this was truly an accident, that, a fight that got out of control. That's what I think happened. I don't think anyone intended to murder him. It was absolutely not on purpose. But what happens when you get drunk and you start fighting, right? Shit goes down. Could it have happened to my friends when I was 17? Probably. Probably, yeah. Probably. So that's the book. I don't remember the name, but I will get it to you before the night is through. I promise. Carrie Cove sends $9.99 and says, thank you, Sam. You are awesome. So are you. Thank you so much for your support. You guys are awesome. Josie Lou and Co. sends $49.99 and says, data result of House Long to Die in Cold was 49 to 90 minutes that AM. Jen wears watch upstairs, dozed off for exactly 90 minutes. She was up by 3:55 on a blizzard Saturday, and after drinking from 2:30 a.m. while her cell phone was dialing Officer John O'Keefe downstairs. Yeah, I mean, when you do like an analysis, that's a great point. When you do an analysis of her like watch, or of her like steps and her heart rate and all of that. And what's funny about that is she tries to account for that by telling us that she gets up in the middle of the night to pee. Remember, she tells us that during the trial, and you can't hear that and not think that she's not trying to defend against any question that might come up about heart rate, or about, oh, it looks like you were awake at this time, right? Like, that is what she's doing when she talks about getting up in the middle of the night. It's very similar to when she's asked about her little adventure at Mike Lank's house, and she talks about running in to go to the bathroom. Again, it's like just another way for her to eventually, when she's called out for the fact that she actually had a conversation with Mike Lank, or was in the house, or somebody saw her go into the house, or whatever it is, it's just some way. It's like plausible deniability, right? It's insane. But that's what I'm saying about her testimony. Everything she says is either deliberately with the intention of like getting ahead of something that she knows is coming, throwing Karen Reed under the bus and making her look bad in some very deliberate way, or just being totally deceptive. That's like what her whole thing is. Like I said, she may have even been like the one that they elected to do it because, right, she's the best at it, which tells you everything you need to know about this group. I mean, I guess, yeah, who was going to do it? It wasn't going to be Julie Albert. I mean, she God love Julie Albert. Oh my God. How funny is she? Oh my God. Kelly Chloe Bitso, we acquit $5. Can you please play her trial 1 testimony? Yes, I will. What I'll do eventually, that's a great point. Not once did she say she did CPR, because she didn't. And you're right. It would be very helpful. I've done it before on my own. Like, I've gone back to check, But it would be also really interesting to just do like split, 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 split. And then also to be able to do like, I've done it with some little details in the past between her and Carrie, because again, when you listen to her and Carrie and you hear their stories side by side, you also see that they differ, that they actually differ substantially. They are pretty seriously discrepant. And that makes you wonder, like, well, doesn't Carrie realize that Jen is telling a very different story? That Jen is saying that there were all these taillight pieces missing? And, you know, you would think so. But again, my guess is that Carrie's, you know, not trying to go find evidence of how Jen is deceiving her. Like, that's the last thing that Carrie Roberts wants anything to do with, right? She's just not going to go looking for ways that her friend, who she loves so much and who's been there for her, and it's just, they've been through this terrible trauma together. You know, she's not going to go looking for ways that you know, that person isn't the person she thinks that she is. So, but it's a great idea. And I definitely, you know, what I'll do is I'll ahead of time try to do it, and then we can watch it during a live stream, because it's so long. These testimonies take forever to go through if we try to go through them like in real time. Edie Purdy Purdy sends $2 and says, Jen McCabe didn't do CPR. Of course not. No. Because she knew John was not alive. So in fact, remember the 911 call, she's screaming at Carrie, you got to get off him, Carrie. You got to get off him. Got to get off him. Like, I think the vibe that you get from Jen when you listen to this 911 call, when I hear it now, the vibe I get is she was pretty spooked by the fact that he was dead. She's kind of freaked out by the fact that Karen is, you know, throwing up her shirt and laying on him and trying to warm him up. And Carrie is, you know, laying on him. And the fact that they are interacting so intimately with John's body seems to bother Jen. For whatever number of reasons you could argue, but it seems like it's something that she's unnerved by. Maybe we would all be unnerved by it. I don't know, but it does seem like she has a real, like, it's not something that she's comfortable with at all. Not at all. Okay, let me get this out and let's add to the stage the cross-examination of Ms. Jen McCabe. Oh, this is so good. This is like, it's epic, this battle. It is an epic cross-examination.
Good morning, Ms. McCabe.
Good morning.
When was the last time you spoke with Carrie Roberts before your testimony today?
She called me last night.
What did y'all discuss?
She asked if my daughters were going to be staying home from school today because her daughter would possibly join them.
Did you discuss anything having to do with your testimony?
Not my testimony, no.
Did you discuss anything in that conversation with her prior testimony?
No.
Are you aware that she testified last week?
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Whoa. Wait a minute. Hold on. We got to listen to that again.
With your testimony.
Hold on a second.
Because her daughter would possibly join them.
Did you discuss anything having?
Sorry, I think I heard something I hadn't heard before.
Good morning, Ms. McCabe.
Good morning.
When was the last time you spoke with Carrie Roberts before your testimony today?
She called me last night.
What did y'all discuss?
She asked if my daughters were going to be staying home from school today because her daughter would possibly join them.
Did you discuss anything having to do with your testimony?
Not my testimony, no.
Did you?
Okay, so that is a flag. That's what I was talking about earlier. When I was talking about putting the answer at the end instead of at the beginning. Not my testimony, no. So she gave an explanation, then she gave the answer. And Jen McCabe is very consistent in not doing that. Now, I know you're saying, Sam, that's nitpicking. I promise you. I went back and listened to I want to say 45 minutes of Lieutenant Gallagher's testimony a couple nights ago, just to hear if during baseline he ever did that. What she just did right there. Explain, then give a yes or no. And he did not do it, not even once. And throughout the entire testimony, there are a very small handful of times where he does, and those are deceptive. So my point is, this is something that most of us don't realize we do not do unless we are being deceptive. None of this is conscious, right? So when there's sort of two different things happening at once. Sometimes we're able to just catch people in a lie because 7 of them say different things. Like with the whole thing about Brian Higgins and Brian Albert being in the family room looking at pictures of their son in the Marines, or looking at Brian Albert Sr. when he was a Marine in uniform. And then they're upstairs in the son's room looking at pictures of the son. Like, everybody tells a different story. Okay. That's overt, outright lying and catching people in lies. This is not that. This is sort of subconscious deception that she doesn't even realize she's giving away based on the way that she's using language right in front of us. But you got to really catch it, and it's tough to catch it. And I think that right there isn't true. So what that tells us, it is very possible that they did discuss her testimony. Now, my guess is it probably wasn't a play-by-play, but could Carrie have said to her, how did you do? I mean, if this was your best friend who you've been talking to every day for the last 3 years about this case, you don't think you're going to ask her, how was your testimony? How'd you do? How'd it go? What did he ask you? You don't think you're going to ask any question? I mean, would it surprise any of us if this is a lie? Of course it's a lie, right? Of course Carrie asked her, how did it go? Of course she did. Well, that's what we're learning, though, from the answer that she's giving us here.
Did you discuss anything in that conversation with her prior testimony?
No.
Are you aware that she testified last week?
Yes.
Did you discuss anything after that, after she testified with her about her testimony?
No.
We know that through her testimony that you had a conversation with her the morning that she testified.
Yes.
Right? Did you discuss what you anticipated to be her testimony in that conversation before she testified?
No.
Have you and Ms. Roberts ever discussed anything about either one of your testimonies, either in the last proceeding or in anticipation of this proceeding?
No.
So for the entirety of the last year,
She looks so scared.
even though you both went through a proceeding last year where you both testified under oath and it was highly, highly publicized, neither one of you, your good friend Carrie Roberts and you, have ever discussed either of your testimonies between that time and this time.
No, we've discussed the case and we've discussed what happened that moment, the moments of the morning, but we have not discussed testimony.
Okay, so let's break that down for a second. I'm talking about, because the timing matters. I'm just asking at this point, if you'll bear with me, just the year from last year at a different proceeding to this year, you have discussed this case.
Yes.
With Ms. Roberts.
Many times, yes.
And you've discussed the specifics of her memory, which would be reflected in her testimony, correct?
We talked about what happened that morning.
So you were talking about what she remembers happening that morning, correct?
No, what happened that morning.
Okay,
okay. What's funny about this, and the reason I'm kind of laughing, I had gone back and listened to Carrie Roberts testify. And when Carrie is asked these questions, almost exactly the same questions about her memory, about talking about with Jen. And if that affects her memory, Carrie's pretty honest about it. She's pretty outright that it's very likely that she has spoken to Jen many, many times about it, and that very likely would have impacted her memory. Very likely. But Jen is very defensive about it right off the bat. Will not in any way admit that she and her conversations with Carrie could have influenced Carrie Roberts' memory of events at all. Will not admit it, won't even allow us to consider that could be a possibility. And of course it is, you guys. I mean, you have no idea. Memory is very faulty. And if you get with another person and immediately start talking to each other about what happened, you can completely and totally change every aspect about what you think you remember from that incident. It reminds me of the firefighter who remembered the puffy jacket on John, right? Was it Nuttall that during the last trial testified that John was wearing a puffy coat, and he got into great detail about the coat, and he remembered stuffing or something from the coat? That's what happens. You can invent pretty much anything, and if you keep rehearsing it, especially if you have somebody else that was there with you when that thing happened, you can make all kinds of stuff true or seem true, and you would believe it. It's sort of like when all of us, if you have a picture from a time when you were a kid and you don't even know if you remember that thing, or if you just remember that picture because you saw that picture in your grandmother's house all the time when you were a kid, it's like that. So it's absurd that Jen McCabe is so defensive about this, but of course she is, because, right, she's got to convince us that she's telling us the truth and that her version of events and Carrie's version of events is exactly what happened. They're not trying to convince us of anything. They're not doing anything nefarious. Of course not.
Not to put too fine a point on it, Ms. McCabe, but if you ask me what I had for dinner last night, it's my memory of what I had for dinner last night. Would you agree to that?
Sustained.
Did you talk about her perception of what happened that morning during the last year?
We've talked about what has happened, yes.
Okay. So I'm trying to break it down between you and Ms. Roberts. You've discussed her perceptions and her memory of what happened, as well as, and separate and apart from, your memory and your perceptions, correct?
Correct.
So there have been circumstances in which you and Ms. Roberts have compared, by definition, what she remembers versus what you remember, correct?
I wouldn't say compare.
Now let's move to what would you say in terms of what you've discussed and why?
I would say that we've both talked about what we've discussed, but it wasn't like a comparison. We weren't comparing anything.
You've talked about what you discussed. What does that mean? Talked about your testimony?
No, we've discussed what happened to that moment,
right?
And in those moments. So, when I got a phone call, and that's my story. That's my
story.
I got a phone call in the morning, and then Carrie can say, "Yeah, I got a phone call as well."
As you said, that's your story. Correct?
Not my story. It's
Those
the
were
truth.
yours.
It's the truth.
Okay. So, for instance, when you got a phone call at 4:53 in the morning, Carrie Roberts wasn't there, correct?
Correct.
But you've discussed that with her.
Correct.
And you've told her what your perception of that, your memory of that phone call was, even though she was not recipient to and did not witness that phone call, correct?
I've told her about the phone call, correct.
As well as many other details that she was not privy to personally, correct?
Correct.
Conversations that you've had, for instance, conversations that you claim you've had with Ms. Reed, correct?
Correct.
And you've told her what your perception is of those conversations, or your memory was or is of those conversations with Ms. Reed, correct?
Which conversations with Ms.
Any
Reed?
conversations, just anything that she wasn't privy to. You've discussed that with her.
Some things, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And conversely, Ms. McCabe, obviously, she's also discussed certain perceptions and memories that she has about this case in the past. this case, as she recalls them.
Okay, so before we continue with this, I just want to go back for a minute and I want you just to see what it was like when Alan Jackson started his cross-examination with Jennifer McCabe the year before. Just so that anyone who's not familiar with the difference between the way Jennifer McCabe presents in trial 2 versus trial 1, just so you can get like a, basic understanding of the difference, because it is pretty striking. I mean, she's really trying hard here not to seem edgy, not to seem defensive. She's trying to smile. She's trying to nod. She's trying to show teeth. Like, she's really, really making an effort. It's profound, the difference. So let's see if we can't catch it right away. Okay, let me pull up. All right. Okay, let me add her here. Yes.
Ready. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. McCabe, family is important to you, is it not?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, it's probably fair to say that family is one of the most important things in your life.
Yes.
You indicated on Friday that you know John O'Keefe, or you knew John O'Keefe, and you considered him a friend.
Yes.
You also indicated that you know Miss Reed, and at some point you considered her a friend.
Yes.
But clearly, John O'Keefe was not family, was he?
No.
He was not a McCabe, correct?
No.
He was not an Albert.
No.
Karen Reed is not family, correct?
Correct.
Not a McCabe.
No.
She's not an Albert.
No.
Ms. McCabe, when you were at Waterfall on the evening of the 28th, going into the early morning hours of the 29th.
So did everybody see? Did you see the right off the bat, she goes in and she's got the smile, but then as soon as he starts asking questions, she can't hide her disdain. She can't hide the anger and the defensiveness that she feels towards him. And you can feel the anger. And that's sort of the difference. One is not so loaded with anger. The other, the second trial, she's trying to not be aggressive. And to me, she must have practiced. I mean, she had to have, even if there were drugs, even if she's medicated, this would have taken very serious practice. There is no way that she did not rehearse a tremendous amount for the second trial. She had to have.
You spent some time with John O'Keefe and Karen Reed.
Correct.
You didn't see any tension between the two of them at the time?
No.
Matter of fact, they seemed like a normal couple to you?
I didn't see them interact much.
They were both engaging with you, correct?
I had separate conversations with them.
So John O'Keefe, we've seen from several videos, I'm not going to play the video, John O'Keefe was situated for the most part over in that corner as the camera is looking, the right corner of the bar, along with you, the O'Keefe's, I think Matt McCabe was over there as well, correct?
I can't be sure, but I know I spoke to Karen in that corner.
And certainly you saw nothing to suggest that there was any tension or discord between and among those individuals, certainly between Miss Reed and Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
When you left Fairview, were you among the first to leave or among the last to leave?
I left there was 4 of us that left total. And it was.
Okay, so I'm going to start analyzing that. I don't want to get any further into it before I start analyzing it, but I just wanted to show you the difference. And you can see, I mean, what jumps out to me is the aggression. What do you guys see? Do you see that also, or do you see something else? Maybe there's some also effort to try to be proper. I can't quite place what the other very nuanced differences are, but the thing that really jumps out is she just seems angry and like venomous, right? Like she has this real disdain for Alan Jackson, and she can't hide it no matter how much she tries to put on like the nice smile, right? That is the biggest thing that jumps out between the two. There are other things, but that's sort of if I had to put a pin on it, that is like what I would say the biggest difference is. Free Libras sends $20 and says, what if the same witness had a butt dial at 2:22 a.m. and did 2:23 a.m. house long search, i.e., what did Brian A. borrow just after John O'Keefe passed, 6 butt dials seeking John O'Keefe and called wife before returning jam pump. Yeah. So in other words, is it possible that somebody else had her phone, or, they were using, let's say, her phone to try to find John's phone, and then could have been Matt. Was it Matt that was, involved? The other thing that, to my knowledge, we don't have the whereabouts of the other people in the house. We have Jennifer McCabe's cell phone. We have some of, I guess, Carrie Roberts. And to me, we have an extraction that has been screwed with, a doctored extraction. But we don't have all of the, the geofence data that Procter made sure we didn't get. We don't have where the McAlberts were. We don't have do we even know where Matt was? No. Do we know where Nicole and Brian were? No. Do we know where Chris was? No. We don't know where anybody else was, right? Except for her. And then we have, of course, John and Karen's phones. But the defense tried to get the phone of Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, and they were denied. They were denied that by good old Judge Bev. But it was through that order where the defense had made that request that we learned that they destroyed their phones. So even though we never get anything, we never actually get their phones extracted, we do end up getting evidence because they then go ahead at the very idea that they might have to, they both go ahead and destroy their phones, even though eventually that request, I guess, is denied, right? By the judge. It's amazing. Just amazing. And that's the other thing. I just want to say this. The other thing that struck me when I saw this, I guess, I don't even know if it's news, but that the McAlbert's attorneys are saying that they intend to maybe someday file a suit against Karen and Aiden, which again is, to me, it's absurd. I guess it's just like a feeling like they have to say that. Fine. But the first thing I thought is, man, you guys just don't help yourselves ever. You don't know how to help yourselves. Shut up, go away, put your tail between your legs, and just like go away. Just abscond. Like, shut up, go away. But no, you have to keep throwing yourself back out into the public eye. It's just like Ian Whiffen. You can't go away quietly. You have to continue to try to throw it in our faces how smart you are and how you're this boy wonder genius. Well, that's the reason why all these people then say, okay, you want to keep throwing this in my face? Oh, well, then I'll take the time out of my life to spend hours and hours and hours digging through the evidence that you provided us to try to prove you wrong, right? I mean, that's what these people keep doing. You just keep putting yourself, like, once again, back in the limelight. More attention, more attention. It's like they just and it doesn't matter who, whether it's the Commonwealth, whether it's the DA's office, whether it's Michael Proctor, whether it's the cops, whether it's the prosecutor's office, whether it's the McAlberts, none of them know how to make a good decision. I mean, that's the truth, right? Like, shut up, go away, put your head down, ignore it, and just do you. But they can't do it. They can't do it. It's so stupid. So stupid. Thank you so much, Jess Joe King, who sends $1.99 and tells us the name of the book, Storm of Suspicion by Kevin Lenahan, who's also known as Plevin. Yes, I am not encouraging anybody to go read it. He is not a person who supports the Free Karen Read movement. He is, I guess, on the other team, if there were teams. But I wanted to, at that time especially, I was trying to get any information that I could. I don't care who it comes from, because I want as much information about all of it as I can, whether it comes from one side or another. I don't care. And as soon as I heard, like I said, that he had done an interview with Brian Higgins, and I'm also glad I read it, because he gives a lot of background about the town of Canton. And that was helpful. It was helpful. It was helpful in, again, getting a much clearer understanding of like what this community is like and how much it's built on the backs of hardworking men and women from South Boston of the Irish Elk, who upward mobility left South Boston and settled the community of Canton. That is a lot of what Plevin's book is about, especially in the beginning. So he's explaining what this community is, how it's a lot of people, mostly Irish, who left South Boston and did much better for themselves, right? Through a lot of blue collar jobs, like the fire department, like working for the police department, were able to do much better than, you know, their parents and their parents' parents who came over from Ireland and settled the area, right? So that's like what he talks a lot about, and makes a lot of sense when you think about what we're talking about and the people that we're talking about. And certainly some of you know this, I'm sure I've said it before, but you know, my mother is from Western Massachusetts. My father is from northeastern New Jersey. And so I am from both of those places. Spent my early life in, you know, northern New Jersey. And then in later, like middle school, high school, I was in Massachusetts. And so I have familiarity with both places. And yeah, I mean, you know it when you see it, right? Like the area in and around Boston, it has a flavor, it has a personality. It is something that, like I said, when you see it, you know it, and it is its own thing. I guess just like people from the Bronx, or just like people from Brooklyn, or just like people from Alabama, really, right? Okay, let's keep going. We're going to go back now to Trial 2.0, cross-examination of Ms. Jennifer McCabe. Not that the first trial isn't worth, it absolutely is worth watching, but yeah, the second one, there's more information. We have more information, and she gives us more information too. Okay, I got to do the switcheroo here. Come on. Sorry, you guys, my mouse is getting stuck on me here. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. There she is. Oh my God. Cannot get this mouse to do what I want. There we go.
You were not necessarily correct?
Yes.
Things that may have taken place outside your presence, correct?
Correct.
And you've talked about things, I'm sorry, she's talked to you about things. Now I'm getting myself confused. Y'all have talked about things that were outside of her perception and outside of your perception. And you've shared those with each other.
We've shared our experiences. We've become very close. We both lived through a traumatic experience.
How many times would you say you and Miss Roberts have discussed your individual perception, your
experience,
your perception?
Sorry.
Sorry, she's talking to you about things. Now I'm getting myself confused. Y'all have talked about things that were outside of her perception and outside of your perception. And you've shared those with each other.
We've shared our experiences. We've become very close. We both lived through a traumatic experience.
How many times?
We've got two one-sided shoulder shrugs in that 10 seconds. So my guess here, I'm guessing I'm just looking at this as we are talking. My guess is that she's trying to write this off as we're just friends now, and it's no big deal, which isn't quite true, is it? Man, I'm telling you, these people are so guilty. It's brutal. This is what I mean when I say it's like, lowercase t, re-traumatizing, because every little time that I see it again and I realize what it means, it's like, how could this person be so evil? Ugh.
Would you say you and Miss Roberts have discussed
so evil.
Your individual perceptions of what you remember happening on the 28th or the 29th of January 2022? How many times?
It would be hard to put a number on that. We talk about, it's hard. We're bonded. We talk about the trauma that we relive every day. Karen called us for help and we both answered the phone.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. So that was one of her little rehearsed statements. I don't know if you noticed the change in her tone, the change in her expression. Karen called us for help and we answered the phone, right? So that was one of her little lines. And you can literally see her expression changes and the way she moves her body changes when she has to get in those very clearly rehearsed statements. Oh, she's tough to take. Sorry.
Is the glue that holds you two together. Is this case, correct?
Yes.
So that probably, by definition, is the foundation of many of your conversations. Do you agree?
We've grown into friends where we talk about many other things besides the case.
Sure, the movie you saw last weekend and what the kids do against it.
Yes, and yes, absolutely. We talk many different things, just like girlfriends do.
I'm just concerned.
Just like girlfriends do.
With asking you about the subject matter of this case.
Yeah. Let me just say, there is no world where this woman is going to sue Karen Reed and Aiden Carney for defamation. Like it's not going to happen. There's no world where this person is going to do that. She might threaten to do it, but these people, they must be scared to death of lawsuits, especially civil suits, because we're going to get all their depositions. And you heard what we saw from the lawyer today, right? With Peter Tragos told us, you think that these people have a shot in hell? I mean, it's so brutal. It's tough to watch this. It's tough to watch it. It is tough to watch it. I should be so desensitized to Jennifer McCabe, but it's tough to take. It is. She's tough.
Details and facts of this case. You two have probably talked hundreds of times, that's fair to say, about your individual perceptions, your respective perceptions of this case, correct?
This happened 3 years ago, and we've talked about it time and time again. This case has traumatized us, so
And
it's a huge part of our lives.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Traumatized us.
I believe it just,
right? Note that she's
traumatized.
trying to
Violence.
conflate the
Okay.
two of them. She wants all of us to think about them as one person, right? She wants us to conflate them. She wants the jury to see them as one person because Carrie has a lot of credibility. So of course she wants us to think of her in the same way as Carrie. But that's because Carrie doesn't have certainly anywhere near as much to hide. Now, just to be fair, I want to be honest. I did an analysis, not publicly, but I did one, a mini one of Carrie recently, and I was pretty surprised at how willing she was to, I don't want to say bend the truth, but she was liberal with deception more than I thought she would have been. You know, she does do a fair amount of like covering for her friend. She does. But obviously, Carrie, for every other reason in the world, like she wasn't at the house on 34 Fairview Road on the night in question. So she just by default is more credible. And so, of course, Jen wants us to conflate her with Carrie. Of course. Oh, so painful. Oh, sorry. There we go.
It would be impossible for you two to have had so many conversations about your respective perceptions of the details of that day without that influencing the other person, correct? You've somehow been influenced by Miss Roberts's perceptions and her memories, correct?
I don't think I would say influenced.
Would you say that she's been influenced by your perceptions and your memories?
Objection. Would you say that, Ms. McCabe?
No, I wouldn't.
Next question.
How many times have you met with anybody from the DA's office? And I'm just going to limit the time frame right now in anticipation of your appearance in this trial yesterday and today.
I'd say roughly 4 or 5.
Can you give me a time frame when those 4 or 5 meetings were?
I don't have dates. I do remember at one point I met with Mr. Brennan. He was new to the case. So I went in and he introduced himself.
How long ago was that? Weeks or months?
I can't give you a time frame. I'm sorry.
Do you think it was last summer?
No,
I can't.
It was more recent.
Okay.
Yeah,
It wasn't in the fall of last year.
No.
It was in 2025 sometime?
I believe so. Yeah.
Let's think about what she's saying here, just to be clear. She has just said to Alan Jackson, I can't give you a time frame. Sorry. He is asking about the meetings that she's had with the DA's office, with the prosecutor. And she is saying, I can't give you a time frame. Sorry. Well, why not? You don't think, put yourself in her shoes. Either that means you've had so many meetings with the prosecutor that you can't remember them all, because we've just met so many times that it would be impossible for me to right now stop and think about the countless meetings that I've had with the prosecutor's office. Or what she's saying is, I don't want to sit here and tell you the number of times and the frequency of when those meetings occurred, right? Either that, or she just told us that the prosecutor is preventing her from telling us, which even I, with as much faith as I have in this group of prosecutors and the DA, I doubt that. I don't think Hank Brennan is so corrupt that he would tell her, you can't say anything. Even I, in my mind, cannot take that leap. So to me, this is her way of telling us that she can't or won't is the better way to say it. She will not tell us when and how much she's met with the DA. That is what it means to me.
Yes.
You think it might have been February, January?
Again, I can't give you an exact. I'm sorry.
All right.
Right.
I want to talk about the
Can't.
time frames of those conversations, and I'll ask you a little bit more about those conversations. So that was the first meeting that you had was with Mr. Brennan in anticipation of your testimony. What were the subsequent 4 meetings or so that you had?
Mm-hmm.
With whom and approximately what time?
Okay, so another meeting with Mr. Brennan. Are you looking for who was
Sure.
there?
Who else was there?
I mean, can I give you a general answer? I didn't write down like every meeting who was there, but
Of course.
generally. Okay.
Was Mr. Lally there?
During 1 or 2 of the meetings, he was. Yes.
Was Ms. McLaughlin there?
Yes.
Was there anybody else from the DA's office there?
The officer or trooper Tully was there at 1. Trooper Buchanan
Just
was
1.
there at 1. The witness advocates were there. And again, give or take the particular meeting.
Those are 2 meetings that you've talked about with Mr. Brennan and others. What about the 3rd meeting?
No, I'm sorry. I was lumping a few of them together.
Sure, understood.
I apologize.
How many meetings would you have? Let's just start there. How many meetings have you had with Mr. Brennan and either staff or colleagues?
So after the first initial meeting,
Right.
I would say, again, I didn't write them down off the top of my head. I can think of 2 or 3 more after that.
Okay.
Excuse me, first initial one.
So that's either 4 or 5 meetings with Mr. Brennan and some combination.
Note that she said, I can think of, which is very different than saying, this is how many meetings I had. She's saying, off the top of my head, I can think of 2 or 3 more.
Of his colleagues, Mr. Lally, Ms. McLaughlin, perhaps, Mr. Nelson, perhaps, the other employee of the DA's office.
Yeah, and they had a lot of meetings with, I guess, Mr. Nelson, because remember, Carrie became very friendly with the witness advocate, Steve Nelson. That became somebody that Carrie was close to. And Jen used to reach out to Carrie to say, hey, can you reach out to your buddy, Steve Nelson, and ask him this or that? So if we count those meetings, there were probably many more.
And Troopers Buchanan and Trooper Tully.
Correct.
You asked questions about at any of these meetings. I'm just going to lump them all together. Any of these 5 meetings. By the way, when was most recent?
Last night, I had a Zoom call in regards, I think the court asked them to.
Yes, I'm going to stop you right there.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to ask a different question, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to lead you through this question.
Okay.
You had a conversation last night. I'm not interested in that particular conversation. That was for a very...
Yeah, so this is interesting. I don't know. Does anybody remember? You guys probably remember what this is about. What was this meeting? I do not remember. I feel like I may have known at the time that there was some speculation about what this meeting that they were called in just before was about something specific that they're not supposed to tell us about. I feel like I remember that it had something to do with, and I can't remember what it is. So if you all know, make sure that you tell us, because I cannot for the life of me remember what the hell it was about that they wanted to speak to her the night before. Was it about the order of her testimony? I cannot remember. I can't remember. I want to say that it was no, I want to say that it was something logistical, like it had something to do with when she was going to be meeting. I forget. I don't remember. But if somebody remembers, let us know. I see my sister. Hi, sister. Hi, Jackie. I see my sister's here. Hello. Okay. Going back. Oh my God. Of course, like my mouse runs out of power now. Of course it does.
Specific purpose. I'm asking you about everything leading up to, but not including last night's conversation, okay?
Okay.
So let's just leave that one out. You've had, I think you mentioned either 4 or 5 other meetings with Mr. Brennan and some combination of his colleagues and or law enforcement.
Yeah, and I might have, in the 5, included that one from last night.
Okay, fair enough.
Might have, but I might not have.
Were you asked questions in those, we're just going to call them 4 meetings. Were you asked questions during those 4 meetings about your testimony at the first proceeding last year?
I reviewed my, I did review some of my testimony, yes.
In what format?
I watched.
Paper transcript or?
No, we just watched a little bit of it.
Do you watch your direct examination?
A little bit, yes.
Did you watch your cross-examination?
A little, yes.
Who cross-examined you?
You did.
That was good.
Yes.
And did you watch the redirect?
Not a trick question.
No.
Did you watch any part of any subsequent version of recross or additional questions that you were asked?
I don't believe so, no.
Was there a specific area that Mr. Brennan asked you to look at and review in terms of your direct or your cross-examination?
No.
Did you watch the entirety of the direct examination and the entirety of the cross-examination?
I do not believe so, no.
I would
Were
take
you
hours.
questioned by Mr. Brennan following your review of that direct and cross-examination?
No.
So he didn't ask you any questions about any of your answers?
I don't, he showed me a dash cam and would ask me to point out who's this, who's that, a waterfall video, is this you, is this somebody? Those were the type of questions that he asked me.
What about any discussion about your demeanor and how you performed?
No, that was probably Brian Albert. So probably wasn't Hank Brennan who was coaching her on that.
In the last proceeding. Objection. I'll ask it a different way. What about your demeanor? I'm using probably a poor word, perform.
Mm-hmm.
How
Look
you
at her
came across your demeanor in the last proceeding. Objection. Did you discuss changing your demeanor in any way, shape, form, or fashion from the last trial to, the last proceeding to this trial, my mistake. From the last proceeding to this trial, was your demeanor ever discussed?
No, I was just told to slow down, answer the question, and, answer it to the best of my memory.
Wait. Let's go back there. Watch this. Watch her answer this.
Was your demeanor ever discussed?
No, I was just told to slow down, answer the question, and, I was just told to slow down, answer the question, and, answer it to the best of my memory.
Was there any discussion about talking about your background, for instance, your family and your children and being a sports mom, as you talked about in your direct examination?
No, I believe I did that in the previous one as well.
Was there any discussion about crafting your testimony in any way to suggest a softer approach?
No.
Was there any discussion about how to develop your testimony from beginning to end?
Sustained.
Did Mr. Brennan ask you about, or let me ask it a different way. Did Mr. Brennan take you through a series of questions, for instance, as almost a test run of questions that you might be asked either on direct examination or cross-examination?
No.
Did you practice your testimony with any member of the DA's office?
No.
Were there any sessions where you sat and was subjected to a cross-examination, like a fake cross-examination or a fake direct examination?
No, there
Anything
wasn't.
like that?
No.
What were the things that stand out in your mind? You said you had at least 4 meetings. How long was each meeting?
Not with the prosecutor's office.
Ish.
The first meeting I think was fairly quick. It was just the introduction.
30 minutes, less than 30 minutes?
I don't want to give a time because I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it was fairly quick, yes.
Okay. What about the second meeting?
Again, I don't know specific meetings, but I can tell you that there was a longer one where I did watch some dash cam video, look at different pictures, things like that.
What kind of pictures did you look at? Other than the dash cam video?
The pictures of John's house.
Okay. The same photos that we saw today?
Yes.
how long in total would you say all of those meetings were? Just taking them all together.
I really can't give you I really can't give you an estimate. I think the first one was fairly quick. The second one, one of them was a little bit longer, maybe a couple hours.
Okay.
But remember, you guys, part of why she can't give anything more specific about her meetings with the prosecutor's office is because she's all along been calling and communicating with and having Carrie communicate with. Their conversations with the prosecutor's office have been ongoing. Think about what we know from Mark Bettero's mega motion. Think about how we know that in April of 2023, as soon as he gets wind of this case, within a second of the first story that he ever writes, like the first story he ever writes about this case, immediately the DA, they're all over him. Jennifer McCabe is all over Michael Morrissey. Shut him down. Shut him down. We start to see emails from Morrissey to, with Brian Tully CC'd and everybody else in the prosecutor's office asking questions about witness intimidation and about the statute and about trying to get the feds to charge him with that. So all along, they have contact. So, yeah, of course she can't give us any kind of approximate about what their meetings were like, because which of those meetings counts as meetings? Which are just trial prep meetings and which are actual meetings? And how many times have they met with the witness advocate? And how many times have they complained about how they were being intimidated by Turtle Boy? And I mean, it's like endless, right? So she can't give us that kind of information because, right? Like, what's the difference? It's so crazy. Oh my God. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. I just want to make sure. Oh my God, you guys, I can't even believe. Of course, I've been freaking would be now that my mouse just like decides it's not going to work anymore. Oh. Oh my God. Twigs. Everyone talks about what they discuss. No, what they discuss. What they discuss. What was that a reference to? I wish I knew what that was a reference to now. Sorry, you guys. I'm like having this really hard time with all of a sudden this stupid mouse working and now I can't use it. It's like really, really annoying. Emily Hart 345 sends $10. Jen is like a friend I used to have. She loved drama. After years, I finally dropped her. They crave attention, even negative attention. It's weird, and I want nothing to do with it. I totally get that. I know what you're saying. I don't even know.
Then the third one, is that also a couple hours, or was that one fairly quick?
That was fairly quick, yes.
So fair to say between 2, 3, 4 hours total meeting times?
Again, I'd have to probably go back and look at the date and the time. I really can't give you a specific amount of time. I apologize.
Did Trooper Tully or Trooper Buchanan ask you any questions during the course of any of these meetings?
Regarding the case, no, but we did briefly talk about how my kids were, how their kids were.
But they didn't ask you any questions about your testimony, about your case, about
the
case, about your memories,
not to
about
work
specific
right
facts.
now.
I do not believe so, no.
During any of these meetings, was anybody taking notes? Ms. McLaughlin, Mr. Lally, Mr. Brennan, any of the troopers?
Look at her looking at them. Did you see that?
So there was several hours worth of meetings with you, and nobody scribed any notes that you saw.
None that I saw, no.
And these meetings were not recorded?
All right. So there's so much here. And of course, I can't navigate my mouse right now because it decided to die on me at this very moment. Of course it did. Let's get to these. Yes, no, I totally get that, Emily. Completely understand. I feel like we've all had friends kind of like that. The thing about Jen, though, is, you know, she's tough because she's not somebody. She's very hard to feel bad for, right? Like, you know, there are people that get themselves into very difficult situations, you know, that your like heart goes out to, you feel a little bad for them. She's also just not likable. And that's another problem, right? It's like on top of the fact that she's just lying outright, she's not helping herself because she gets, you know, like you saw the difference between how she was in trial 1. She was so defensive, but then she's like a completely different person. 90% of the people that see it assume she's on drugs because they can't make sense of the demeanor change. And, you know, they're probably right because she was so defensive. So then it calls into question, like, what the hell is the difference? Like, why was she able to contain herself, you know, in the second trial, but not in the first? To me, there's also the element of practice. Twiggs says, yes, Sam, she wants to sound educated. That's true. But she can't keep up with the Queen's English when she's aggravated. Yes, yeah. The SARS and hads come out. Definitely. And that's like just one part of it, right? Because, you know, she's like seething. Like she's seething. And I'm sure she is. I'm sure she hates Alan Jackson. Think about it. You think about, for them, if you're her, especially going back to the first trial, a lot has happened since then. And I think they might have been overly confident during the first trial, sure that it was a lock that she was going to, you know, be found guilty. So then she wasn't. And they all figure they have to make this adjustment. They have to change their approach between trials 1 and trial 2, except that they fared better the first time because whatever changes they made obviously didn't go their way. You know, it's funny because, you know, I don't know what the jury thought about Jen McCabe's testimony. I have no idea. Jury 1 versus jury 2, whether they're even comparable. It's like apples and oranges, really, it sounds like. But you wonder, you know, did they believe her? Did anybody believe her? Either side, either trial, you know, did they see through this? I have no idea. It is impossible for me to even guess what it would be like to watch this if I had never seen her before, if I had no idea who she was, and if I was seeing it for the first time. Would it come across as authentic, genuine, honest? Absolutely. I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. Emily Hart sends $10. No, I think I already read this. Did I read this? No, I did not. Once a person like Jen gets her claws in you, it takes years to get out of. Speaking from experience, they will have you thinking you're wrong for doing something right. I think you're right about the fact that, especially because she's also incentivized, right? Like she has her grips. I don't, you'd have to believe that she was really, really like a sociopath to believe that she deliberately befriended Carrie to actively, in an ongoing way, manipulate her to like do her will or do her bidding. My guess is that day 1, the goal wasn't long term. The goal from the start, day 1, was probably, you know, to befriend her because it was better for them all, period. Keep Carrie close. Carrie's close to the O'Keefe family. You know, she's an innocent bystander and all this. Like, there's all kinds of reasons to want to keep Carrie close in the beginning, but I don't know that it was contrived from the start. That is the kind of thing that you'd have to be sort of sociopathic to contrive. And I don't think that these people generally are. Although it's very tough to continue to watch this and not start to let that thought creep into your mind, because after like really grasping the 911 call and her laughing about Carrie, screaming at Karen that morning, I mean, there's some very questionable moments for Jennifer McCabe throughout this second trial. I mean, across both, but there's some very questionable moments. Now, what I will have you consider when you're thinking about this question, like, is she a sociopath? Whatever. Think about Jill Daniels. Everybody know who Jill Daniels is? She's the one who grabs Aiden's cell phone out of his hand and screams at him. So right at the end of trial 1, Aiden and his girlfriend at the time are walking downtown Canton, grabbing some dinner. I think this is like the trial's still going on. I think the end of the first trial. Yeah, it's like a week away from the jury getting the case, I think. And they're in downtown Canton, and I'm sure you've seen the footage of they all see Chris Albert and his clan are at the pizza shop, and they see Turtle Boy like walking down the street to go into the place next door, CF McCarthy's. And I guess Chris or Colin sees them, and then they call their friends. And so by the time Aiden comes out of the store, out of the restaurant, all these people are gathering. And one of the people that winds up showing up is the sister of Julie Albert, Jill Daniels. And she's the one who smacks the phone out of Aiden's hand. And she's like, I'm so fucking sick of your shit. And she's screaming at him. I point to that because it shows you that that woman is just the sister of Julie Albert. Okay. She is nobody involved in any of this. She is simply defending her sister. And so it shows you the level of stress that all of this has brought to their lives. They are so stressed that the sister of Julie Albert, who's not even like being directly accused of anything, is so out of her mind, emotional, that her reaction to seeing Turtle Boy, let's think about who we're talking about, okay? You're talking about the guy who his job is to go in front of an audience and like blow up people's spot. That's what he does. And they already know that. Nobody knows who he is better than this group of people, which is why they went after him so aggressively the moment that he learned about the case from April of 2023, minutes into this, okay? He has no idea that they are aggressively pursuing him, try to put him in jail. Now, you might want to ask yourself, gee, why didn't they try to file a defamation lawsuit like the countless other people that have done that before, whether they were innocent or not? Well, good question. Instead, they call up their buddy DA Michael Morrissey, and they think the best option they have is put him in jail, set him up so that he ends up in jail. They befriend Lindsay Gattani. That's their best option. That is what Jennifer McCabe and the McAlberts have elected to do as a strategy, because that's how much they can't stand Aiden Carney, Turtle Boy, right? So my point is, like, they are so stressed out about him by the end of trial 1 that their best option is assault. Like, that is the sister of Julie Albert's best option. Assault the guy who's going to go on with a microphone and scream to everybody who he can about what I just did, which is assault him. Okay? Physically assault him. So that just goes to show you, though, like the level of distress and the level of stress and the degree to which these folks like back against the wall. The point is, right, their backs are against a wall. So why? Because the question earlier was like, why would they lie? Well, why would you lie? Why would you lie about the fact that you're hanging out at a house and one of your family members gets involved with the murder of a police officer, even if it was accidental? That cop, you're all drunk, everybody's wasted. And whether it's your nephew, whether it's your brother-in-law, whether it's your brother-in-law and his buddy who you were out the bar drinking with the night before, whatever combination of people, whether it's your brother-in-law, your brother-in-law's dog and his buddy and his nephew, whatever the configuration is, like your back's against the wall, they make the decision not to call the authorities, but to try to make it look like it was an accident. You just happened to be at that house. What are you going to do? I mean, you're going to defend, you're not going to go behind their backs and go to the authorities, right? You're going to do whatever they tell you to do. And that's what I think happened here. Their backs are against the wall, right? So I don't think that they are sociopathic. I don't think Jen McCabe is getting off on any of this, but I think that their backs were up against a wall. And honestly, I think she thinks of herself as like she didn't really do anything wrong. And that would be true. Maybe that would be true if she hadn't gone to such great lengths on multiple occasions and across 2 trials to try to put this murder on a person that she knows didn't do it. And then, and this is the part that is truly like evil, like truly. And then go to great lengths to befriend the victim, the person who was murdered, like friends and family. That's the part that I have the hardest time with. Is like, so your best idea is let me BFF the man who died by my brother-in-law or nephew or configuration of whoever. Let me BFF that man's best friend, mother, father, niece, nephew, their kids, his kids. And that's what makes this evil, right? It's like, should have called this thing quits a long time ago. Should have just walked off into the sunset like on January 30th of 2022. And that's the other thing that you always have to remember about this case, guys. When people are scratching their heads and you're like, these people, how could they be so evil? But you have to also remember this is a small town. They thought that they had all their bases covered because they have connections throughout all of the police, law enforcement community between the Massachusetts State Police, the Boston cops, and the local cops, the Canton Police Department. They thought that they had a lock. They never in a million lifetimes imagined Alan Jackson and Turtle Boy were going to show up and like ruin their lives. But I think that's how like a Jen McCabe sees this. Like that's why she had such a hard time controlling herself during the first trial, because she sees this as like his fault, right? It's Alan Jackson's fault. Because we would have got away with this if it wasn't for Aiden and Alan Jackson, right? They had all of their bases covered between the DA and all the law enforcement agencies involved. It's so disgusting. Oh my God. I know it doesn't, there is no battery. It's like a charging thing. So I'm like trying to charge it every time I speak. It's so annoying. Yeah. It's really annoying. And you know what? I always like before I do ever my Wednesday night, I have a whole routine that I do and I always charge it on Wednesdays, but it's Monday. So I'm out of my routine. And it was my boyfriend's birthday today. And so that threw everything off. So I did not go through my normal routine that I normally would before. So, but thank you for your suggestion. I've been trying. I'm like over here shaking this thing around. Ruth Ann 85, 4 months. Oh my God, I can't believe you're a member for 4 months. One thing I have to remember, I have been working, Denise, who's the greatest moderator in the whole world, is kind of helping me with this. I am working to try to fix the like little stickers and things because they're like the wrong size. So just know that those, you'll see what I'm talking about, but like they're all, we're working on it. I'm fixing them. They're all being fixed. I also want to take a minute before I forget to thank the trial channel, because the trial channel is like the saving grace of my universe. Truly. I don't know how many, I wonder, like, can you see, I need to find out from them. Like if they could see how many times a day, a week, a month that I am like on their site, it is, I can't even tell you. I have no idea what I would do if I didn't have the ability to use the trial channels to get in to all of those videos and then to be able to not have to try to find my way through each and every testimony. And now I'm starting to get better at it. We're like, I know I can go into the transcript and that's a much quicker way too. So I have like the edited sections by topics, but then also the transcripts. So I just want everybody, if you've not subscribed to the trial channel, you must. You say like, if you are watching trial testimony ever, you have to know about the trial channel. And it's just a huge shout out to the trial channel. Huge, huge life-saving, truly. Okay, so what time are we at? Let's do a time check. All right, 12:35. So we made some progress tonight. I'm actually proud of us. We got through to the end of direct, mostly. And what I noticed, I will tell you as I'm thinking about it right now, what I noticed is there's a lot more discrepancies. I knew there was discrepancies between Jen and Carrie, but there's even more than I realized. And so in addition to going back and comparing, as someone suggested earlier, Jen and Jen, it might be useful to do a more comprehensive analysis of Jen and Carrie, because they're pretty discrepant in many ways, more than I thought. And it's interesting, Alan Jackson, in this initial questioning he's doing of her, it's about Carrie on purpose, because let me tell you, the difference in their responses to what is ostensibly the same questions is very, very different. I mean, you really can see a difference. It's quite striking. Emily Hart sends $2 and says, maybe, oh yeah, Carrie. That's what I was saying earlier. I don't know if you heard me, Emily Hart, but yeah, she's very vulnerable because it's called the trauma bond. So like in psychology, when you have two people, or when you have a person who experiences, like, let's say if you were like a high school student, and it just comes to mind because I worked with somebody as a colleague who was in this situation. As a high school student, a group of their friends were, I think it was like, snowmobiling, and one of them passed away, got into an accident, a horrible accident, and passed away. That group of friends, 6 of them, I think it was, something like that, that small group becomes sort of trauma bonded. So after that, because they went through this horrifying experience where, they're up in the woods, they have to on snowmobiles or whatever it was, and they had to get their friend, find a way down this mountain, wherever, and try to get him to safety. And, he doesn't live through it. That group becomes closer and almost dependent, you could argue, on each other because they went through this really traumatic thing all together. So like a trauma bond essentially facilitates what appears to be an intimate closeness between you and somebody else that is expedited by this traumatic or very emotional experience that you have together. And so I think what made Carrie vulnerable to somebody like Jen is the fact that she went through this traumatic experience. I mean, because she loved John. Was a long time friend. She's very, I think, honest about it. And I think it's genuine. I think we all see that, right? Like even her husband was out with John at CF McCarthy's that night. That's who John is with in the bar when Karen first walks in. And, we see them get reunited after their day of arguing via text. John is with Carrie's husband. So they're very close. They're very close. No question. So yes, Jen had an opportunity to kind of cash in, whether it was intentional or not, on Carrie's vulnerability. Absolutely. I don't think that's even a doubt. I mean, that is what happened in my mind. That's exactly what happened. Why do they fight so hard? Why do they fight so hard? Yeah. Because they think it's like a credibility thing. Because it's sort of like, it's like if you were accusing me of being an alcoholic, right? Let's say you're accusing me of being an alcoholic, or you're accusing me of being like a drug user or something. And even though I am an alcoholic, right? Maybe even everybody knows it. I am not only going to scream and yell and shout and tell you how wrong you are, but I'm also going to try to hurt you because you're exposing me. It's kind of like that. So I think there's a part of both. I think there is a desire to simply like clear my name kind of a feeling. Like, I don't know if it's clear my name, but try to defend myself. Like, I'm innocent, I tell you, right? But then there's also some anger. And I think that's a very serious part of all of this. I think these people feel like, Alan Jackson, Aidan Carney, Karen Reed came along and screwed their lives up. Right? That's kind of what happened here. Not taking any personal accountability for any of it, which is terrible, but true. I want to point out it could be my worst enemy. And I know, Emily, I think about that a lot. Not only that I would call 911, but like to then try to actively indict an innocent person. Like, I don't care, right? Like, there's nobody in the world that I would be okay, no matter what the circumstances, like actively pointing the finger at somebody that I know didn't do this. That's what makes this so like unbelievable, right? That's why, like I was saying earlier, it's like almost re-traumatizing every time you stop and you realize that this is really happening. But I don't know how many times I've gone to great lengths to try to convince myself that that's not the case, to try to say, well, maybe there's some other explanation. Maybe there's some other way to explain Jennifer McCabe's 911 call, but there isn't. There's no other, like, and it's not just Jennifer McCabe. It is Jennifer McCabe. Her 911 call, to me, I already was sure, but that 911 call, when I heard the enhanced version and you can really hear every word she says, I walked away as sure as I could be without, her walking up to me and saying, this is what happened, because in my mind, there's no other way to make sense of that call, right? So that to me was really like overwhelming evidence. But there's also the Google search. There is also, her testimony, which is just deception after deception after deception after deception. So there's that. I mean, and some of it is like anyone could see it. You don't have to have any training at all to see. Not to mention, we have to believe that she was on her sister's front lawn and didn't think to go into the house to get a blanket for the guy who she was with the night before out drinking, who's passed out on her sister's front. I mean, there's so many things, right? We're supposed to believe that, you know, all these phone calls never happened. She never really called, and then the phone calls never answered. I mean, it's just all of it, right? It's not one thing, it's everything, but it's also not just her. I mean, she's maybe the worst offender and maybe the most unlikable of all of the people that are involved as witnesses in this case. But let me just point out that we are not talking even about, like, we're talking about one person in this moment. We have not discussed Nicole Albert, her testimony. Brian Albert, I mean, his testimony is flawed everywhere. Brian Higgins is somebody that I don't or haven't spoken about in a while. I did speak about maybe like 3-4 months ago quite a bit, haven't in a while. I mean, Brian Higgins is another one, just like Jen, that if we're looking at very, very closely, if we zoom all the way in and we examine every word he says, he is like really guilty. And he feels terrible about it. I think we all see that he's very contrite. You know, this is somebody who is emotional. He's experienced a lot of loss. He gets very choked up a number of times about the death of John O'Keefe and about John's nephew not having him anymore. And I mean, you know, it's emotional for him, but he still 100% knows that Karen Reed didn't do this. I mean, there's a lot. There's so much. And with Brian Higgins, I mean, we've been, you know, I have a lot of videos. And if you go back and look at the ones on Higgins, you'll see what I mean. But yeah, I mean, it just never stops. That's my point. Like, to anybody who does not understand why we all think that these people are guilty, it's not one, it's everybody and it's everything. It's everyone, it's everything, it's everybody in the house, it's every cop who had anything to do with this case. It's everyone. It really, really is. I'm not even exaggerating. I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. You will have an easier time if you like head out or make an effort to try and find where they are being, I'm trying to think about how to say this correctly. It might be easier to, like, they lie so much that it's harder to find honesty than it is to find deception. It's everyone. It's the whole thing. It's, no, we don't have a chain of custody. We don't know anything about chain of custody. And then all of a sudden, we learn that they all know exactly how to keep a chain of custody. Are you kidding me? Like, it's everything, and it's the whole way through. It really, really is. It really, really is. And like I said, the one argument, and as soon as I am done with the Who Killed John O'Keefe series, I have this video in my mind that I have to make specifically for all the folks out there who say exactly what we heard earlier tonight, which is, well, it's, you know, if it's one person that's lying or 100 people that are lying, what's more likely? And I get that argument. And I understand why it's so easy to say that. The problem with that argument, it's that Occam's razor, right? The simplest explanation is always the right answer, except not in this case. And that's only true when you are taking whatever you're looking at and looking at it one piece at a time. When you're talking about a case as big as this, and you try to make a sweeping generalization, of course it's not going to hold. It doesn't hold, right? So that I'm going in that direction. It's just that there's so much to do between now and then. So you're going to see, hopefully soon, by like tomorrow at noon, you're going to see my next installment, chapter 5. We're continuing to sort through the police corruption. This is chapter 2, part 2. And this is new. Well, some of it is new. Stuff that I had never found before that I had just found in the last few days. So I can't believe that after all this time, I still find stuff that is new that I've never seen before, you guys. But it's like scratch the surface at this case and you'll find it. Just all you got to do is like randomly pick a testimony you haven't heard, listen to it all the way through, and you'll, oh my God, can't believe they said that. It's wild. All right. So with that, you guys, I will be back at it in 2 days. We'll be back here on Wednesday for our usual Wednesday night. And I mean, who knows what the hell is going to happen between now and then. But assuming that nothing does, and I say that like half joking because something always does, but assuming that nothing does, we will be back and we really will just be beginning, the rest of Jennifer McCabe's cross-examination. And there's so much in here. And if I have time between now and then, I will also try to do maybe something quick, like a side-by-side of Carrie and Jen, so you can see what I mean about the discrepancies. One way or the other, though, we're going to begin her cross-examination, trial number 2. And man, there is so much deception in here. It's wild. So it's a fun one. It's a little frustrating, maybe a lot frustrating, maybe super annoying also because she's a sick puppy. And I know. And I hear it in you guys too. Like it's a hard one to understand, right? Because it's like, wait, what? How could this person be so what feels like evil? But I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think it's a combination. It's layered. It's like a group of people that got themselves into a very serious situation and can't get themselves out. And that is where we kind of are with this group. And I would not be talking about it if I did not believe from the depths of my soul that what I am saying is true. Now, I can only give you my opinion, my professional opinion, my experienced opinion, but it is nonetheless just my opinion. But I will tell you that I believe what I am saying from the bottom of my heart and soul. That's what I can tell you. All right, you guys, everyone. Oh my God. You guys are the bestest ever. I love you all so much for your time, your effort, your energy, your support. You're just the best, and you're the best chat in the world, and you really, really are. And Denise, you're the best moderator in the whole world. Shout out to my sister who I see in the chat. We love you, sis. And everybody, you're amazing. And we'll be back on Wednesday to, keep going. We're going to stay the course. We're doing this. We're going to get it done. Whether it kills me or not, we're going to do it. We're staying the course. We're going to get through the testimony of Jen McCabe, and we're going to continue to point out where all the deception here is and try to understand it, because you guys, that's what we're here to do. We're trying to understand it to the best that we can. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your night, morning, and I will see you really in less than 48 hours. Is that right? Oh my God. All right. Good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. Goodbye, you guys. Goodbye. Goodbye. Good night. Good night. Maybe I won't even be able to stop the stream and we'll just be here together, like hanging out, because I have to press the button if I can do it. Good night, everybody. Good night. Good night. Good night.